Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slot One Super Podcast. How are all of you doing on this fine Friday afternoon? Hope you all are having a fantastic day. Of course, joining me as per usual for our show today, we have the boy Minato's Flash and the Mass Ningen. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen. How's it going?
Okay, you got me there, to be fair.
I am also the Minato's Flash.
The Minato's Flash.
Listen, to be fair,
the one and only.
The Dokkan Asset. Shout out to Amazing, he always calls me that. Listen, to be fair, with Mass Ningen, his Twitter @ is literally the Mass Ningen. So,
right. Channel name, Twitter @ you know it. It's the Mass Ningen.
I'm the one and only Minato's _Flash. So
underscore Flash. Is that the government name includes the underscore? Is that how that works?
Yes, the government name does include the underscore.
That's so funny. Well, hope you guys are having a very good one. We have lots of fun stuff to talk about today. Obviously, we just had the release of the brand new Christmas unit on both Global and JP, which we'll get into, as well as tons of other fun stuff, a little bit of speculation coming up, some new events, of course, JP World Tournament time, so that's always a fun time as well. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, I literally am so hungry. I am tripping over my words that are
Dude said meat and potatoes. I got hungry mid-sentence.
Yummy. Oh my gosh. Well, if you guys would obviously like to support the podcast, if you have any questions or comments or shout outs, all that good stuff, of course, all of that can be done through the good old donations and super chats. And of course, we will be reading all of that stuff at the end of the episode as per usual. So don't worry, we are not looking over your message. We're saving all of that for the end of the episode. So definitely stick around if you do decide to donate or throw a super chat our way. But speaking of the brand new Christmas LR that has come out on both versions of the game, let's talk about that first today. Obviously, the brand new Int LR, of course, the newest Carnival LR in Dokkan, that being the Super Saiyan Goku, Trunks, and Vegeta. Thank God, by the way, he's not just called Super Saiyan Goku like he was with the Eradicate the Super Saiyans one. That I could have totally seen, Omatsu loves his Goku, so I definitely could have seen that being the case, but thankfully they are named all three of them, which is a huge W. But obviously we wanted to talk about these guys a little bit. I know there has been quite a lot of discussion in the community. Obviously, people talking about how good these guys really are. A lot of people really, I have also seen two underrating them and overrating them at the same time. It's been very conflicting opinions about these guys. So I would like to know, Minato, what is your thoughts on this unit?
So,
besides the shaft,
we'll start with the guy that didn't pull him.
Yeah, listen. I want to give the boy. Listen, if Dokkan's not going to throw him a bone, I will. Okay,
it's fine. Just 1,300 stones without the new units and double rates. It's average, that happens.
Average.
When STR Carnival Goku came out on Global, it took me over 2,000 stones to get him.
That's
on
disgusting.
A double rate spanner. Yeah,
that's actually
double rates is a lot. What's funny about this hopping into the summons a little bit off topic. I didn't get a single Carnival Goku or Omega either.
Really?
None of the LRs. None of them in 1,300 stones.
Wow.
Like, I also last year went over 1,000 without the Goku. The year before, I went 1,000 for who was the LR before that year? Whatever the LR was, a future Gohan and Trunks, right? I went over 1,000 stones for him. So it's just repeating every year. New Year's for the last year I got really shafted, so I'm kind of scared. But we'll see. I love double rates, but okay. Anyways, regarding the LR themselves, they're very strong. I think that is just baseline, right? They're doing a lot in terms of offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could you argue them as the best offensive unit in the game? Like on turn 3? Yeah, you could. I think there's an argument for that. They're just stupid good on that Super Saiyans team. Early on, they could have a little bit of issues against like that Fusion Zamasu AoE, but it's not that big of a deal. Their team has like 800k HP. They take like 100k normal from the AoE. great, it's so scary, right? You know, but I like them. I think that outside of their own leader skill, or like power wishes, like if you're trying to run them on like, I don't know, like a joined forces team or something random like that, right? You're probably not going to see them as good as they could be on their team or power wishes, because they really want a rainbow orb changer next to them really, really badly. Because they're in orb changing, I find can be a little inconsistent, but that's the thing with type to type key spheres, especially random key sphere to type key sphere. You can get very lucky, but a lot of the times you can get just like very bad luck. So rainbow orb changers are very important for them regardless. They still do want in key spheres if possible to be consistent with the key, but I like them a lot. In terms of how good they are compared to the rest of the game, I think they're easily a top 10 LR. I actually don't want to say exactly where I would rank them though, just because I do have a tier list coming up tomorrow. So you know, we gotta
hey, the plug, baby.
There you go, the plug. You gotta check out the video if you want to see.
Yeah, but I will say they're very good, and I think that there is a little bit of recency bias. I see people acting like this character could potentially even be argued like as like the best unit in the game or something. Like one or two comments I kind of saw like that. I was like, let's not go too far, but they're really good. I have a lot of fun using them for sure.
Yeah, you will. Well, you will one day. But yeah, so I did pull them. So I'm interested to hear how your summons went, Theo, too, afterwards. But yeah, I did manage to pull them. I actually did get luckier than I thought I would. So I was very worried of a repeat of that STR Carnival Goku shaft, but I did get all the tickets. Obviously, Global W. I did, funnily enough, I did pull at least one of the STR Carnival Gokus that I pulled from this banner with the global tickets. I think the first multi was an LR pull, but I can't remember who it was. So in terms of like the double rates, I did get some LRs, but unfortunately for me, I think in total I pulled like 4 STR Carnival Gokus, and he is already rainbow. So I have like 8 copies of him spare now, because he shafted me on that first banner.
It's GUR, baby.
Yeah, he shafted me on that first banner, but now every time he comes back, apparently I just pull multiple copies of him. So that's kind of annoying. So I did all the tickets.
Like the opposite of your white whale.
Yeah, basically, when it comes to Carnival LRs, apparently. So I did all the tickets, and then I think it only took me, I think it was about 600 or 650 stones with getting, you know, some random LRs here and there, a couple of copies of STR Carnival Goku. And so I'd had a few hundred stones ready to go, used those. I bought a couple of hundred more, and I was really hoping that I wasn't going to go too much deeper than that. And then it was like the second to last Moe. I think I had like 100, literally like 110 stones, so I could do 2 more multis. And I got very lucky. I know I posted the clip on your best multi gets a cookie tweet, Theo, but I got a Zeno, and they popped up as like, I think the 6th unit or something. And so as you do on stream, you know, joking around, I was like, yes, finally we got them. And then it loaded up the next like SR or something, and I was like, right, now give me another one. And then the next unit was another one. So not only did I finally get them with the Zeno, but I got a double pull multi. So I do have 2 copies of them. I think I really want a 3rd copy, but I got back up to 50 stones from doing all the new missions and stuff that we're going to talk about in a bit. And that multi, I pulled double STR Carnival Goku. So that man is just like, he will not leave me alone. Like that multi, it could have been, you know, 1 Goku and 1 Super Saiyan trio, or even 2 Super Saiyan trios, but no, 2 more Carnival Gokus. So it just makes me scared to summon on that banner now, because he just won't stop. He just won't stop coming through. But when it comes to the unit themselves, I think they're awesome. When they were announced, I was quite excited. I'm sure there are people out there who do really like it. I'm kind of, you know, I'm on the like, it's okay when it comes to the 13 movie, but I just thought the idea of having like the trio of Super Saiyans was really good. I think their animations are good. The intro, it's another one of the good ones where we actually got a good global dub for it as well, the English dub, so that's really good. I also love people. We were talking about a word recently, I can't remember what it was. I think it was the small potatoes thing with Goku. Yeah. But I love seeing people on Twitter, especially, it is for the most part Americans, I think, usually, seeing words that they've never seen
Sorry, we're
before, and being like,
competent.
what is this? Because the Vegeta thing where it's like, I'll be the one to finish off this lummox. And like, that's a word that I've heard loads before, and seeing so many people on Twitter being like, what is this word? I've never seen this before. Like, it's pretty funny. But yeah, they're really good. The animations are good. They're very powerful. I like this kind of unit. Back when he released, my favorite unit in the game at that time with the whichever worldwide was it 2022, STR Cooler was one of my favorite units in the game, because he's a unit that you rely on a little bit of RNG, but he does a whole bunch of super attacks, he does a ton of damage, but he's not a slot 1 unit, and you kind of have to roll the dice, and he's like a risk reward big damage boy. So I like using cards like that sometimes. I very much enjoy building teams in the game using characters that have like very specific roles. So it's like, I'll take a slot 1 tank that tanks like a wall and doesn't do any damage, and then I'll take a slot 2 unit that can't tank but does ridiculous damage, put them together, and I'll enjoy like running that combo, right? So I like using units like this. Not every single unit in the game has to do everything or tank like every single thing, AoEs and all that kind of stuff, in order for me to think that they're good. So I do really enjoy using them. I've had a lot of fun with them so far. They're not without their issues. Super Saiyans is a team that could definitely do with a few more buffs. It's obviously in a good place, I would say, but it's not like a great... It's got a couple of like, the peaks are really high, but then the rest of the team I feel like is just kind of like average. So if you're missing, like for example, if you're missing both the worldwide Part 2 Carnival LRs, that team is obviously significantly weaker. But there's some interesting units. I even ran I have a video coming out after the podcast of me doing Sin, because you know Global just won't give us Omega, where I used Heart Virus Goku on the team, and it was actually pretty good. So it's interesting trying out some different units, but yeah, it's I think they're quite fun. Now whilst I do enjoy using them and I think they're very good, to be a bit realistic, couple it with some criticisms, I would say, RNG orb changing, like Minato said, can sometimes be a massive pain. I do like the fact, though, that as long as you can get the key, you don't have to get in orbs for them to get the super attacks, right? It's 3 orbs of every type. So if you get a really bad orb change, but you can still pick up 6 or even potentially 9 orbs of a different color plus rainbow, like that still works. And then, of course, RNG, you could get a super and like 4 additional normals, but the normals can hit relatively hard, but obviously you ideally don't want that. And then the one thing I did find kind of straight away, which is why I experimented with some other units like Heart Virus Goku, is when we saw their details and started thinking about how we would build their team, you have units like Physical God Goku, who kind of seems like an auto-include on this team because he's on Super Saiyans because of the transformation. He's a slot 1 unit, which they need, but he changes orbs as well. And so I've already had in the runs using him to record videos and stuff, the turns where, they were in slot 2, but God Goku was in slot 3 because he started in slot 7 or something. And he changes all of the int orbs to physical. And then he goes in slot 1, he needs 6 orbs, and then they kind of get screwed. So I think certain orb changes are obviously good to run with them and others not so much. So you have to play around with it a little bit. But yeah, I really like them. So I think they did a good job.
That's where I'll bring up. GP does have Broly and Trunks, which is a rainbow orb changer. I feel like that character was made with this team in mind, the rainbow orb changing, as a floated character. I think they were made to be ran on this team. Because it's like they help out this character with the rainbow orb changing. And one thing I have also noticed about this character is I did dabble with them a little bit in the in a thing. But so besides that, the 3 keeper in key sphere obtained, it's like usually characters are like getting like 1 keeper key sphere or like 2 keeper rainbow key sphere or something. But this unit wants into key spheres. So in a situation like that, if you have to get screwed over, because you have to get God Goku 6 orbs. I think that's much more important. As a slot 1 unit. So like even if you get like if you're left over with like a bunch of tag orbs or something, like if you're left with like 6 tag orbs, since they only get the extra key and in key spheres, like you could probably, a lot of times I get like 18 key barely or 19 key. One time I even missed the 12 key super attack because of how the orb chaining worked. Because they only get the 3 key per into key sphere specifically, which is I think where it's like the consistency with the unit could be. And I think a lot of people when they look at this character, they obviously, I mean, a good majority of the time, I think they're going to be looking really good with usually like 2 additionals. I think is like kind of an average because they're orb changing. There's other orb changers on the team, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like RNG dependence for how they're going to be good. And I think people look at their peak and don't think about that. There is a decent margin, like you may not get that kind of peak that people are really like the clips that people would post on Twitter, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's one thing I do want to say as well. But besides that, I think that a lot of people didn't like the 12 key super attack effects that greatly raise attack with returns, and I was like, it's okay, right? It'll give them extra damage, but that actually, if you guys aren't aware, the attack raises on super attack effect, right? They're not like a pure raise like added to the passive, but it is basically like a really good addition to the active skill.
Yeah,
it's basically like a really strong active skill addition. So like it's like basically if you're getting like if you get like 4 or 5 super attacks the first turn and then turn 3 you get the active skill, that's like another 200% attack added to the active skill basically, and it makes it hit really hard because it's guaranteed crit. That's one thing I see. I didn't really see people bring up about this character, but I think that's pretty cool.
Because I think people overlook the fact that it's like because it's the same with the defense on the 18 key, but it's the fact that they're raising the stats for 3 turns. So when they come back on the next rotation, they've kept all of those stacks. So if you get a whole bunch of supers on the first turn, they're keeping the 1 stack of defense, so the start of turn defense will be higher, but they're keeping all of the attack stacks as well. So if you got one of those crazy like RNG turns where they actually manage to get 4 or even 5 supers, if you then do the active skill on the next turn, it does crazy damage. And then when you do their supers, they've still kept all of those stacks from before as well, and are now greatly raising their attack again with each super.
And so guaranteed critting on the active skill.
Yeah. So yeah, their damage that they can do is insane. But that's one of their potential flaws is the RNG, right? Because if you're getting to, say you're going into the last phase of an event and right, this is the turn I want to use the active skill, but then the turn before you get unlucky and they do 1 super and 2 additional normals, then obviously the active skill's not going to hit anywhere near as hard, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I've seen some crazy screenshots of like ridiculous damage from the active skill following up on those turns. So
yeah, I mean, I had taken him into Omega, and they took away 3 health bars from Omega. And I know you haven't played Omega again, but that boss is very tanky. There's not a lot of units that just like shave away 3+ health bars from Omega in 1 attack. It's like Sword of Hope Trunks, the Spirit Bomb, and then like this character like shave away like tons of health on that, right? So that is really good damage they can do in the active skill if they really want to.
So yeah, Theo, what did you think then? Did you actually pull them, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I also got a little shafted as well. Definitely not as bad as Minato, but I can tell you that I am currently 550 stones in. And I have not only not pulled them, but for double rates banner, this has felt very not double ratesy. The only LR that I've gotten so far is funny enough, I got the Fizz androids. So that was kind of funny because obviously they just easy aid.
They're really good still.
And they are really good. And I only had 1 dupe in them, actually. So that was pretty big.
We talked about that last time, didn't we?
Yeah, we did talk about that last time. So literally, we were discussing it. I don't, because obviously they got the easy. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But then the other thing I got, which is funny that you, Liga, were talking about the Super Saiyan Goku Carnival multis getting the 2-in-1 is that I actually got the JP version of that shaft. I mean, to be fair, he's also on JP too. Yes, exactly. I got double Omega, and not to mention, not only is it like obviously he, I don't want him. The funny thing about him too is that I pulled him first multi on the actual banner that he came out on as well. No. So it's not even like, it's my first copy, cool, now I have the character. It's like, oh great, Omega.
He loves you. That's all.
He does, honestly. It's always the worst units, I swear, that just like come easy for me. But regardless though, I mean, it was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. Everything else, like besides that, when I saw those two Omegas, I quite literally burst out laughing. So that was a pretty good laugh. I won't lie. But yeah, I'm probably still gonna keep summoning. Definitely. I will say the only thing that will be very, very disappointing is I kind of don't think it will be. But obviously, I talk about, I feel like I talk about how much I love Gohan Beast like every week on the podcast. But if New Year's somehow, which I don't think it will be, because I feel like they wouldn't do it twice, if it somehow is Gohan Beast again, then I will be very sad that, obviously I had a bunch of stones saved, and then I wanted to use them on the Christmas banner because the unit is cool. He's really sick. I will be very disappointed if then, it's basically all for naught because, my boy, who I would much rather would have had, will be coming out next. So we'll see. I'm honestly like weirdly praying on his downfall, I guess, in this case, because I would almost rather it be like, he doesn't come out so that I don't have to worry about it. But in any case, though, I think the unit is really cool. I will say, in terms of obviously, you guys know that I am definitely the animation guy, right? And I really like this unit's animations quite a bit, actually. I think that they are really, really cool, and they're really good. Interestingly enough, even though this unit has been kind of decisive from the point of the kit, I've also seen this unit be weirdly decisive from the point of the animations. Usually, when it comes to these things, I am the one who's like, oh my gosh, these animations are not that great. And I have people telling me, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. The animations are still really good. But this time it was the opposite. I was like, yeah, they're really good. I like them a lot. And then people were like, oh no, they did not cook this time. I'm like, are we looking at the same thing, bro? I don't know.
We gotta point those people out, man, because they're crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I was
the
just
only thing
like,
I'm
dang.
not like a fan of is the I feel like the impact of the last shot, like when he does the
Yes,
punch.
Yeah.
I think
Could be better.
that's like undeniable. That unfortunately, that definitely they did not cook on the like how impactful that feels.
Yeah, like it does look good, but it needs that extra little bit of like oomph at the end, I think. But
right,
what
exactly.
we did get is what is there still looks good, but it doesn't have that extra like,
It should have had an explosion like
yeah.
They definitely
like
should have
that.
had more of an explosion for sure. I will say the one thing that I will comment on their animations, I suppose, is they definitely do still feel like a Carnival LR in terms of like some of the quality things that they have with their animations, but I think that they are one of, if not the best Carnival, I would say, so far in terms of the animations. But yeah, I really like them. And I mean, like, to be fair, right, when it comes to a unit like this, like, how I know that a lot of people are kind of talking about like, oh, it's 13 movie stuff, so I'm not really excited about it, which I get that, right? But at the same time, like, I don't know, I just feel like no matter the source material, anything that's like, just a bunch of characters working together who don't always necessarily work together, obviously, like, that's how it was for that's part of why, like, Trunks and Broly are obviously so exciting. I mean, that's a little bit different because it's a what if, and obviously, the three of the Saiyans work together in the movie, but still, obviously, it's just a really cool unit to see Goku and Vegeta and Trunks all working together. So
Yeah.
I think that's just another thing of, what makes it so, so exciting and like such a fun unit to watch, just the spectacle unfold, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts in the series that you don't have to like narratively, but you could still like the the cool fight scenes, right?
Exactly. I 100% agree with that.
Like-
There are plenty of moments like that in Dragon Ball for sure.
Yeah, so like I said before,
yeah.
right, when I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the Android 13 movie, but I'll take a Super Saiyan Vegeta, Goku, and Trunks unit. It's
Yeah, why not, right?
I mean, we could point to
Plus-
like the Universe 6 tournament or something like that. Like, people weren't excited for that, and then it's like if Lukaku and Goku and Hit get announced, they're like, "Oh my god!"
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Plus, the great thing is that Dokkan now, with how good the animations are, or even if you don't think they're good, like overall, just the quality of like the characters
Yeah, oh,
themselves
yeah.
and the sprites and stuff.
Mhm.
So when they do these ones from the old movies, they just look so good. Like I saw
Yeah.
some people posting some side by side screenshots from the movie of some of the bits of like Trunks
Yep.
where he looks like he has a really goofy face in the actual
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
But like
Yeah.
in the Super Attack animation, he looks really cool. So
Yep.
yeah, that's the thing is, it's one of those things I've said before quite a lot when we talk about units that are going to be coming out, and people will say, and I don't disagree, I like OG Dragon Ball and all that kind of stuff as much as the next person, but people will say like, oh, you know, I want an LR Demon King Piccolo. But then for me, it's like, well, if we get an LR that's like 3 Super Saiyans, that's a unit that I can run on a bunch of the teams that I like to run that link with the units that I like to use. So if they bring out like a trio of Super Saiyans from one of the movies, then usually it's going to be good, at least aesthetically, which has we've kind of all agreed on, like in terms of looks and like animations and stuff. This unit is very good, like high quality. So
I mean, even the Vegeta and the active skill, he has animations from Broly, the 3DS Broly movie. When he powers up, and then when he does the Ki Blast and also third with enemy's face, that's from the DBS Broly movie that they took from.
Awesome.
So I'm like, that's interesting.
I actually didn't see the comparison. Funny enough, I saw the video go up and then I completely forgot to watch it. So I will have to take a look.
You should.
I know there's
a lot of like shots in those. And nowadays, they just always take shots from like completely random different things.
Which is cool, honestly. Like, and I was saying too, it's always nice to see in the animations the sort of like cohesion that they're able to achieve. Because obviously, you know, like I think a good example of this, just because it's, you know, obviously one of the latest examples, is like Broly and Trunks, right? Obviously, they don't have a moment where they're, you know, like attacking together, obviously, right? But they do a good job of kind of having the attack still be really cohesive, that it looks like they're attacking together, despite obviously using references from a bunch of different things, rather, excuse me. So it's cool to see that, even though obviously, like, you know, it's not like they all attacked in that exact fashion when it came to the Super 13 movie, they still did a really good job of kind of stringing it all together, so, you know, it really feels like it has a lot of cohesion to it. So yeah, I think they did a very good job. I'm still gonna be summoning for the unit. I don't know. I'm also having really bad luck on like every gacha game I play at the moment too, so that also kind of doesn't help. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely am excited to summon for them a little bit more. I hope that I can definitely cop them. So. Yeah, very good though. It seems like we've gotten our thoughts about the boys out. I'm very glad to see that a lot of people were excited for them too, because obviously, you know, when it comes to like, I don't want to say more unique characters, but obviously when it comes to something that I feel like is like this hype, at least I don't know, for me personally, you know, it's always cool to see people really, really excited about it. So huge W. Speaking, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say another reason why is because I think throughout the entire year, I feel like people were like talking about this as being a potential LR. Because it's like one of the few things we never really got representation for, like a team up of these three. And it's like the idea of like the intro being the powering up.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen it mentioned a few times, and then I think it's one of those hilarious things. Like they posted the secret hint teaser, and immediately everybody was like, "Oh, okay, where's them?"
Yeah,
yeah, great.
It was like,
yeah, that was funny.
Everyone knew.
Dude, it was so funny because, like, obviously that was, like, mostly what everybody was saying. Also, I apologize if you can hear that airplane outside. But
airplane mode.
It was kind of funny because there were still, like, some people who were, like, you know, who were like, oh, no, it's definitely going to be this. And it was, like, the most whack thing I've ever seen. And I was like, bro, there's no way.
There was a post someone was doing of Goku, Frieza, and Cell. I'm like... What are you talking about?
I will say there were a few where I was really confused at the character choice. I don't know if it was just like I didn't understand or something like that, but there were a couple of them that I was like, okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but I see where you're coming from. And yeah.
No, go ahead. What are you gonna say? I thought you were finished. Go on.
No, go ahead.
No, you finish.
Okay.
I'll go after.
No, I was gonna say, oh my gosh, now I lost my train of thought. Shoot.
What you did, Minato.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. No, you're talking about the different guesses that people were having.
Oh yeah, so like obviously some of them were just like super goofy. But there were a couple of them that definitely like I feel like still made sense. But I was like, I don't really think so, but I could definitely see it happening. Like, of course, me, I swear this isn't me trying to be the superhero coper, but I did see people saying like, blue for Gamma 2 Sacrifice and then orange for Orange Piccolo and purple was Gohan Bees. I was like, listen,
I mean,
that's really cool, but I still feel like that's not
Well, it's
only
like,
still a little bit of a stretch. But
we had-
in one character, all that. Like,
well, that's the other thing. I was like, dude, how would they be introducing all of that at the same time?
Yeah,
Like that was the
exactly.
other thing.
I guess I mean the hint could have just been that it is superhero, I suppose, because one of the other ones I saw was like the orange is Gohan from the BoJack movie, because obviously Vegeta and Trunks are in the BoJack movie as well.
Interesting.
And then of course there was that post that we were tagged in of the the Heroes Super Saiyan 3 trio card. So I was like, I made a video about that just because I thought it'd be fun. It's like, imagine if it was the Super Saiyan trio, that'd be awesome. Super Saiyan 3, but yeah,
I know my guess. I was gonna bring it up. Well, my first guess is obviously the Super Saiyan from the 13 movie, right?
Yeah, that was my
But
guess.
my second guess was like, I mean, it wasn't gonna happen because the fighter celebration was set to end already. So that's why we knew like this wasn't like gonna be a fighters alarm. But my idea was like the default team in fighters, Trunks, Goku, and Vegeta. That's like the default
that's
team
cool.
in fighters, right?
That's a good idea.
First team,
honestly.
right? And it would have been cool, like getting like a more fighters animations, another like crossover. Like, what I was like, what if there's like a 200% crossover leader and they're an LR, and it's like basically like giving the heroes team an LR, right?
That'd be wild.
I thought would have been cool, but
yeah.
Nope.
But yeah.
Oh,
that's unfortunate.
I like what do we got though, so that's
yeah, I do
Same.
definitely like what we got. And I mean, to be fair, right? Obviously, the other thing is this, which I think we'll maybe we'll talk about him a little bit later, even though I know I don't know. Well, maybe we'll also talk about him more next week because he'll actually be out by then. But obviously, 13, right? Got his EZA because this LR came out. So it's funny because it's like I'm sure that they wanted to do this as a unit for a long time and they probably had it cooking for a bit, but it almost does kind of feel like they were like, okay, low key they knew that 13 needed the EZA, so they did a 13 related thing just so they could give him the EZA. I don't know. That's
he's
definitely
like,
a little
that
bit
makes sense to me.
The AGL 13, we kind of all knew he was going to EZA with this release, right? Because I think he's the only other unit in the game related to the 13 movie that didn't have an EZA, apart from that physical Trunks, but he's his side banner unit. So obviously they both get an EZA because all the free-to-play ones, all the existing Fusion 13s, like they all have EZAs already. So it was only him.
Well, the big one, ironically enough. So I low-key wonder if that's the reason why they did it, just to just give the EZA. So does that mean Dragon Fist for New Year's? I don't know. I'm just saying. Anyway, let's move on. Obviously, with this celebration, we got a bunch of new stuff. One of which being the brand new challenge event, Intensifying Fights. Obviously, this is the event. Yeah, challenge, quote unquote. This is the event where you obviously have the blue Goku from that the Goku and Trunks and Vegeta wallpaper, and then all the villains that they kind of Mod Podge together to make a graphic design as my passion sort of event icon. Even though I kind of dig it, honestly, because it sort of looks like a custom thing that's actually in Dokkan. But either way, though, obviously this event was introduced and kind of teased as, oh, this is going to be a brand new type of challenge event that we are going to be getting in Dokkan. And obviously, I think, I definitely have quite a few thoughts on this event after playing it for myself. So I'll give my thoughts real quick, and then I'll let you boys take it away with how you're feeling about this. But, I don't know, maybe I should just learn to kind of dilute my hopes when it comes to anything that Dokkan says is going to be new difficult content. Because I swear they have said like 3 or 4 times now, hey, here's the new difficult content, right? That's going to be, added to the game. And of course, we all get excited because we're like, oh boy, something new that's actually hard. And seemingly never turns out that way. Unfortunately, this event was also mega easy. At least as far as I'm concerned. Now, obviously, if you were doing the category missions, this event was even easier for you because, of course, those units were boosted on the event. So it was a lot easier to beat it with those teams. But even without the boosted units, I still don't really think it was that difficult of an event. Now, obviously, I'll let you guys give your thoughts, but I did want to mention, obviously, before we get into it, just so you guys also, kind of give your thoughts on this too. This did introduce a very interesting type of mechanic that I don't think has been a mechanic really on other stages. There may have been something a little similar, but nothing exactly like this. They obviously brought us a brand new way to sort of unlock another stage, I guess would be the best way to put it. It's kind of hard to describe. So basically, there are different bosses that you can get depending on how the fight actually goes within like your actual just like playing through it. So for Android 13, on the second stage, depending on how many orbs you collect, it is kind of like a choose your own adventure game. You're right too. With how many orbs you end up collecting, that will then int orbs specifically, by the way, that will then depend on if you fight 13 and his goons at the same time as him, or you'll end up fighting Super Android 13. And for Goku, the number of super attacks performed in the first phase and the second phase is what determines which of the Goku bosses that you will get. Now, I will say before I finally let you guys, have your cake and eat it too. I'm going all the food metaphors today, baby. The interesting thing I will say is that Goku's, is a lot more simpler than 13's. Goku's is quite literally just do super attacks. And for 13, it says that on stage 2 specifically, you need to get int orbs specifically. And it says that you need to get a certain amount. Now, the interesting thing I feel like is that they don't tell you how many orbs you need. They just say collect more int orbs and then you'll get to him, which I found really strange and almost kind of frustrating because I ran through it like, of course, Dragon Ball fan moment, I didn't read, right? So I played through it like twice and I was like, okay, why is this not unlocking? Because I see the mission to beat 13. But then obviously I read it and I was like, collect int orbs? What? So then I did it and I still didn't get it. But then eventually I got a run where I got enough orbs. So I thought that was really interesting personally. I would have kind of wanted them to tell you how many orbs you would have gotten. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that kind of takes away from like the mystery of it, or like the, oh, you're supposed to kind of figure it out yourself sort of thing. But I don't know. I still think I would have preferred if they would have just been like, hey, Bozo, collect this many orbs and then you'll get there. So it wouldn't have been as confusing. But yeah, go ahead. What do you think?
I agree. They should have been a little more clear about, I think, like, in the description of the news itself, it tells you, like, collect a certain amount of key spheres. Why not tell us how many key spheres are needed, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Did I say kiss spheres? I don't know why.
It's all right. I ignored it. I know what you meant. You should have been.
It's whatever. It's fine. It's fine. I just gotta note it because someone in the comments is gonna be like, kiss spheres. Oh my god. Anyways, oh, dang! I just okay. Continuing on, I think that it should have been specifically stated how many key spheres we needed to get. I think that'd make a lot of sense. And on top of that, I feel like even for the additional super attacks, I should have noted. And I also think the event could have been harder in terms of like how hard it hit. But I think it's an interesting idea in terms of, okay, you want to meet these certain conditions to unlock these secret bosses. I do like that quite a lot. I think it's a very interesting concept. And I hope that they explore more into it.
Absolutely.
Where it's like the bosses are on equal like kind of levels, but then it's like they do completely different things. That would be pretty sick.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like maybe like there's like a like a Universe Survival Saga 1, where in the first phase you fought Blue Falcon, Goku, and Blue Evolution Vegeta together. And then for the second phase, depending on what actions you take, you could either fight the Blue Evolution Vegeta that does the final explosion, or you could fight like UI Goku. And then
That's
it's
a good
like it
idea.
branches out. Stuff like that could
Mm.
be really, really interesting. And then it's like maybe UI Goku's a dodging character. Blue Evolution Vegeta, maybe he has like an AoE countdown super attack or something like that. Like they could really make this an interesting event.
Mm.
But then we'll have to wait and see how they may take it. I think it's a good template though. And I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, I would
I agree
say
with that.
the only
Ningen,
things
what do
to
you
add,
think?
yeah, the only things to add really, like I mean, adding on
Oh,
to what was said,
He's
I
muted. I
He's
see.
muted for, no, he's muted for us.
Yeah, he's muted
Am
on
I?
our end. Yeah. Oh, he's
can't hear
not
him.
muted for them.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's weird. I don't know how
Interesting.
that happened. But yeah, so
Discord went crazy.
when I heard you
though.
say I
I was
was
like, what is
muted,
this?
I looked at everything else and I was like, no, I'm not. But I was on Discord for some reason.
I'm not.
But yeah, adding on to that stuff there, yeah, I really like the idea of what you do in the fight changes the outcome. I think that's really cool and something that they should definitely keep doing and expand on. I also very much agree that they should have said exactly how it works with the numbers, because I asked around and, you know, but no one knew straight away. Now, the interesting thing is the fact that I actually took it because obviously you have to collect a certain number of orbs, and it's well, it's not a large amount, but the more orbs, the better. So when I jumped into the second stage for the first time, it was like, well, I must need to do the more super attacks, the better. So I bought a whole team that has built-in additionals, didn't get Super Saiyan Goku, and then, yeah, posted in the group chat, and it was like, oh no, you need to get as few super attacks as possible.
Is
So
that
it's like, oh, it would have been really nice to know that.
It is?
Yeah, because
Wait,
I think I
hold on,
got,
let me
Oh,
read
that's
it again.
nice.
I think I got 11,
It says,
and
oh, it quite literally just says the factor that decides which opponents you will face, number of super attacks
Yeah.
performed
I guess-
in
so
phase 1 and
when I
2.
did the first run, I got 11, and I didn't fight Super Saiyan Goku. When I did the
I see.
second run, I got
Interesting.
7, and I fought Super Saiyan Goku. So I'm assuming it's 10 or less than 10. I'm not sure which.
Interesting.
So if anyone
Something
knows
like-
in the chat, like maybe someone got 10 and they still fought Super Saiyan Goku, I'm not sure. But yeah, because it doesn't say, then you don't really know. And I could see, you know, that being a bit frustrating for people like us and people in the chat. And so obviously we're part of, you know, what we would largely call the Dokkan community. But I would imagine if you're somebody that just plays the game, but you don't know a lot of people that play it, you're not on Twitter, like that kind of thing, you could do that event a couple of times and just have absolutely no idea, like, why am I not getting to Super Saiyan Goku? Like,
Yeah.
so I think they should have just said in the thing somewhere,
Yeah.
even if they didn't say specifically the number, but it's like for that Goku one, saying like the less super attacks you do, the better, because it's really unclear. But anyway, other than that, I mean, I think it's good idea. The only thing I will say to people disappointed about the difficulty level is we don't know how it's going to be built upon in the future. Obviously, the image shows a whole bunch of different enemies, and both of these stages were taken from one thing, right? They're both from the 13 movie. One is versus the good guys, one's versus the bad guys. So it could go one of two ways. It's either going to be like the collection of epic battles where it gets updated ages from now and is a similar sort of difficulty level where it's still kind of easy, and will just be themed around some other new thing. Or potentially, and what I would obviously like to see, is they go more along the sort of Red Zone or Birth of the Shadow Dragons route, where the early stages are really easy, but then by the time we get to the last ones, they're actually really hard. But I think it's, if I had to guess, because both the stages are from the same thing and we only have 2, and there's nothing in the news to say that any new ones are going to be coming out anytime soon, I'm going to assume it will follow more of the collection of epic battles thing. Because if we had something in the news that said new stages were getting added in like a week, then we could maybe assume that it's going to go the sort of Red Zone route. But I guess we have to wait and see. I like the gimmick, so even if they don't make this event that much harder, it would be cool to see them starting to add that into harder content in the future, potentially, where you get to affect what the final boss is going to be, something like that. I think that would be really cool. So
yeah, I agree. Also, kind of, you know, I guess it doesn't really matter for the greater Dokkan base, but it is good for content as well, for content creators who, obviously then that's just another video to make of fighting both bosses, or just more content to include in the video of fighting every boss. So, that is pretty cool, from that perspective. So I will say, I need one of you to remind me, because unless I'm just misremembering, I think that for Goku stage, I don't even think that there was a mission to fight him specifically, unless I just completed it really easy. There is? So
yeah, the missions are basically the same for both. So one is a category team, which is target Goku. Then the other one is just beat it once. And then the other one is defeat Super Saiyan Goku, because the one for 13 was like defeat Fusion 13. So if you get to Super Saiyan Goku with a target Goku team, you can do them all in one go. But yeah, I did both of them in 2 goes, because again, due to it being unclear and especially playing it straight away, I didn't get Fusion 13 or Super Saiyan Goku on my first attempt, but then did it on the second one. So, but that was kind of cool, because then, as I said in the video, I included both runs in the video, and it's like you can do your category team, win the stage, and then if you didn't get Fusion 13 or Goku, you can use a completely different team and try and gear that more towards what you want to do. So for the 13 one, for example, I ran a Pure Saiyans and Hybrid Saiyans team and just bought a couple of orb changers, like the Sword of Hope trunks and stuff like that. So then obviously I was able to get a ton of orbs. And then for the Goku one, I just brought a load of like really hard hitting like units, because you don't want units that do a ton of additionals. You want units that hit really hard in their one attack. So I think I used like the double 21 team, and I used LR Super Boo, because if he gets hit first, he's got the AoE super. He can just kill Trunks and Vegeta in stage 1 in one super. And then there you go. You've done one super and you've already beaten the first phase. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like doing the different ways round. So more stuff like that would be nice, but maybe with a little bit of extra difficulty level.
I mean, like you said, you used the Sword of Hope Trunks, a very old one. I used that like base form Vegeta that
I used
used
him as
during
well.
New Year's. Yeah, right. It's like their goal for some of these events, they did state they want different characters to be good in different events, right? To use different characters and everything like that. So they kind of did, I feel like, meet a mark with this, with the orb changing field. I think it could have been a little more lenient, but that was cool.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think the only thing was I just felt like the mission for 13 was a lot more difficult. I guess it was just because it wasn't as clear as for Goku. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I happened to get Goku first go, so I was just like, oh, okay.
When I did too. Right?
Yeah. And I didn't even like think about it. I wasn't like trying to get it or anything. And I was really struggling with trying to get 13 out there. I was really scratching my head. But regardless, though, yeah, I really hope that not only that this event will get more stages in the future, but I do definitely hope that they implement more mechanics like this. Just like Minato said, this is a very good template for, something to build off of in the future for sure. And I really hope that they do more stuff like this, because honestly, as fun as it is to do these difficult events where like you have, like obviously it's like, attack lowering or attack raising or defense or, AoEs or, multiple supers or whatever, right? I feel like not only is all of that not very fresh when it comes to like, it's not very new, right? We've seen it time and time again. It's also like, I don't want to say it's not very interesting, but it's just like kind of built in Dokkan mechanics. So seeing them do something like this that I feel like is a little bit more out of the box is really cool. So I definitely hope that they do, more stuff like that for sure in the future as well. But with that being said, we will have to see if they do add more stages to that. And speaking of collection of epic battles, hopefully they add more stages to that too, because it definitely needs a couple extra too. But in terms of other events and whatnot from the celebration, the Android 13 Red Zone stage got some new missions. Funny enough, actually somehow completely missed this. I'm not even gonna cap with you. Minato was telling me before the podcast, yeah, the Red Zone got new missions, and I wish I would have known because that's more stones, and I could use the summon for the stupid LR that I know now. I don't know how I missed that because I read the like celebration info 3 times too. So
Well,
Minato, just because you're assisting me here,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna give you the pass over here. Well, I'm sorry, Ninga, were you gonna say something? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, the funny thing is, the number of people that I had ask me on stream and on videos, like, where are the missions? Or people commenting on the first video that I put up saying, oh, I don't have the missions in my game because they didn't put them under the actual red zone section. They're in a completely separate thing in the main missions menu.
Oh,
Yep.
And a whole bunch of people missed those out. So you go into the main missions bit, you've got the middle button, which is the King Kai one that's for events. That's where you find,
me
you know,
look right
normally
now.
all the
Hold on.
celebration events and stuff like that. And it is listed. I'm just loading mine now. And of course, as I do this, it takes ages to load. And then, yeah, under the Frosty Miracle Winter Campaign, you've got the Inevitable Showdown Extra Missions. And for some reason, they're just called like Mission A, Mission B, and Mission C, like D and E. And they are the things for the Red Zone for Android 13. So, but yeah, before we let Minato dive in, I put a poll in the chat, guys. I was just doing some of these missions myself as well. I have 50 stones again. So should I do a multi on the LR banner? Yes or no?
Oh, I'm
yeah,
gonna do a multi
Minato.
as well.
And then Minato replied saying, if you pull him, I'm leaving. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah,
I'll leave.
chime in
Jen,
in the
I'm
poll
live.
chat and Minato,
So you won't
take
see
it
me.
away.
Okay, so the missions, I think they're cool, right? I think the rewards for the missions could have been a bit better because there's like what from I'm taking a look at them now.
One medium skill orb.
Now we got 6 medium skill orbs. That's chill, but you know they could have given us a little more like skill orbs, or they could have given us more stones. I think would have been nice as well. Like, why not 5 stones per the missions? Like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
And I know they're limited missions, so maybe they don't want to make them too good because they are limited, I guess. But I think it is pretty cool to have these missions regardless. Just more stuff to do, right? So the 5 missions are obviously movie heroes, Super Saiyans. You want to have a full team of both of those categories. You want to do 4 STR type characters on your team within 4 turns. You want to have 6 STR type characters, and there's no turn limit. And then you also want to have a 3-turn clear. So you want to basically 1 turn every single phase.
Huh.
Now, in terms of the one I had most difficulty doing, funny enough, it was the 3 turns one because I kept getting like really bad RNG. But I feel like a lot of people will struggle with like the 4 STR type within 4 turns because of the fact that it is 4 turns without using any items, right? In fact, none of these missions you can use support items at all, which is really interesting, right? No item runs, you know. What could I say? I've been telling y'all the whole time it's gonna happen. But I think that one could bring people difficulty. How I beat that mission was I used double blue Kalkin Goku, and I just had the Spirit Bomb nuke, right? And that's what I did. I'm not sure what you guys use potentially, and well, we don't know.
Oh,
So what about
did
you?
you
I
have to
just
ask
discovered
who I used? Heroes Agenda, baby.
Let's
Oh,
go.
you
Absolutely destroyed
STR
them
one?
in 3 turns with Vegito.
For the STR mission, I'm assuming, right?
Oh well, I did the 3 turns with Vegito.
Oh, yeah, with 3 turns. Yeah, that
and
makes
then
sense.
I did the full STR team with Heroes, but with an AGL Vegito Blue friend, because I pointed that out in my video. Remember, the mission says the friend is not included, so you can use Limit Breaker Vegito as the friend, and then make the rest of the team full STR. And then yeah, for the 4 STR units, I did 4 STR units in 4 turns. I did the double GT duo, so I had Bulma. I think I used STR Ultimate Gohan, because then that let me also put like the Boo Boys and somebody else on the team who weren't STR but are a unit that's able to just do loads of attacks and do loads of damage, because then they can just kind of get you through. And what was the other one? I'm trying to remember. Movie Heroes one was fun because Movie Heroes was 6 turns, and because Movie Heroes is such a great team in general, like, or it was, obviously it's not the best team in the game anymore, but it has all those fun units that we haven't used for a while. So like using double God's lead for the first time in ages, actually putting Tech Godku on there, because of course all the new Red Zone stages are all stages you can't use them in. And you know, chucking units on there like the Go Bros that I haven't used for a while and stuff like that. So the Movie Heroes one was actually quite fun. So I think I would say overall for the missions, I really like that they tried to make them challenging in the sense that the Red Zone 13 stage itself is not that hard. So by combining all of those things, so it's like use certain units, do it in a certain number of turns, and use no items. I think that makes the missions like quite fun. Obviously, some people will struggle to do them, but you know, I mean, they're special missions for the end game content, so you would kind of expect that not everyone can necessarily do them straight away. But I thought it was kind of a fun way to do missions rather than just doing beat the stage again and use this category and then that's it, right? So I thought it was quite interesting.
Funny enough, I did the Super Saiyans and movie heroes together because I ran physical God Goku as my leader, right? And then I just ran like Carnival Goku and stuff like that because you're able to obviously make Super Saiyan. There's a lot of Super Saiyan 1 characters in movies, because like Super Saiyan just was like in every movie for like pretty much almost every movie outside of obviously like the very early ones. So that was pretty cool. And Gohan and Goten is a really good option, you know, for that stage as well. I saw for the 4 STR mission, people use Orange Piccolo. Orange Piccolo done like multiple of the STR like characters, like, you know, let's say STR Gamma 1.
Oh, the superheroes,
or, you know,
that's a good
stuff
idea.
like that.
So,
Right?
was it LR Blue Gogeta as well? Yeah, like some just random
Yeah.
superheroes characters. It's pretty cool.
And then
That
on
is a
turn
good
3,
idea.
when you're in the final phase, you end up using the active skill, the giant form, and you're like, oh well I win, right? Because there's like no way you don't
Yeah,
finish
and
the boss
13's AGL as well. So yeah, Orange Piccolo.
Yeah.
Even like normally the giant form, you can get a nice little bit of free damage in some of these events. Some of the difficult ones, not as much, but you're still getting the kind of giant form. It's not a glitch, but that's just a quick way to call it. Whereas against the AGL 13, he can actually do some decent damage to him as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Well, thank you for telling me that because I will now be informed when I go to do the missions for myself. Yeah, that is a pretty cool way to do it. It's interesting because I do agree. It's like, because I just looked at the rewards, obviously, on the mission tab. And it's kind of interesting because it's like, I do agree. It's like, it's really not a lot of rewards. Like, I feel like it could have been more. But at the same time, I also think that it is definitely a case of like, oh, well, you know, they definitely can't make it too many rewards because then obviously for, you know, those people who, you know, aren't going to be, you know, be able to obviously do it because they weren't there for the celebration, then of course, you know, it makes sense that obviously, you know, they don't want to make it too crazy. But it is definitely a very unique way to do missions. You know, I really like what Ningen said actually, that is a very good point, that it's kind of like, you know, taking an event that's not really hard in the first place and sort of making it hard by, you know, doing like the requirements that you needed.
Yeah. Because there are, if you think about like, you know, we've gotten missions before for Broly and Omega, so in the future we'll be getting more missions for like Fusion Zamasu. You know, you can, even with a category that's not that great, a stage like Red Zone 13 that's not that hard, even if they threw out a mission that's like, oh, you know, use, I don't want to name a category off the top of my head that's not necessarily that bad, but you know, use like Defenders of Justice. Like even then, it's probably not that hard because of some of the units on there are pretty good because the stage itself is not that hard. So just putting in like a category team, which they can do against the tougher bosses, and some of them still be a bit of a challenge. Obviously, they had to do something a little bit different for the stage because it's not that hard, which I thought was kind of cool.
Right. That is pretty cool. Yeah. I do. What's funny is that, like, you know what that almost kind of reminds me of, but I think the difference is that the original stage is actually hard. Is the Cell Max stage for Special Pose, though I feel like that's a little bit different because obviously Cell Max, you know, when it came out was actually difficult. But obviously it was like even more difficult.
Dude, I still get people in my
Pose
stream
mission.
sometimes that will say that like the special pose mission for Cell Max is now still the only thing in the game that they haven't done.
I've heard that too. Yeah. Honestly, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not that dedicated, or I don't have that much mental fortitude or something like that. But like, I swear you need the gammas to be able to like finish that mission. And I've seen people finish it with some whack teams before for the special pose mission where they're using like SR Ginyu Force characters and stuff like that. I'm like, bro, literally how?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
I know. I remember I got super lucky on mine because I recorded it to go up as a video, and I remember I had like, it was one of those turns where it's like Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, but Gamma 2 just had the turn where he did like 4 supers that were all crits, and because they do extra damage against him anyway, he just absolutely tore him to pieces, which was pretty good.
Hooked him. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely though. I do understand where people are coming from on that one because obviously, you know, it is like a very, I don't know, I don't want to say niche category. I mean, I guess it is, right? I don't think that's unfair to say.
Oh yeah, definitely is.
Yeah, it's kind of a niche category, and it's kind of like one where, you know, there aren't like a lot of characters. I guess it's more like there aren't a lot of characters that are like really powerful characters, right? Because obviously some categories you know, have a couple of those really heavy hitters that will be able to, you know, help you get those missions done. For some like missions like that, even if there's like not a lot of options, the team still has a couple, but like it's like really limited for special pose. So yeah, but either way though, definitely a very cool way to do missions. I do hope that in the future that they do more of that. Because it's just another way to make the game more unique. It is quite interesting too, I will say. It almost kind of feels like with this celebration, they were like kind of experimenting almost on like, you know, trying out some different things that maybe, you know, they just haven't really done before like that. So I do think that that is pretty cool. Between this and the event that we obviously just discussed, I think this was a pretty cool, you know, celebration overall.
Yeah,
But,
I think so.
yeah, for sure. Anyhow, though, we do have a another fun topic to discuss for today. Obviously,
We're getting into everyone's favorite game mode.
yes, everyone's favorite game mode. So, obviously, there is a little bit of you know, shenanigans with this that we'll discuss with Global as well. But obviously, right now, JP just got a brand new world tournament. Of course, they have been, I guess we haven't really been waiting on a world tournament for too long now, but Global has certainly been waiting on a world tournament for a fat minute because obviously Global got their world tournament postponed and they have not said anything about rescheduling. And I know a lot of people were, you know, thinking that like with this data download, it's like, oh, it's the perfect opportunity to also, you know, like,
Yep.
basically just reschedule the Global World Tournament. And obviously, they did not do that.
don't know why.
Why? I don't know. I wish I knew. So we will let's talk about that a little bit before we get into the new units with the JP World Tournament. This isn't too long of a section that I feel like we need to dawdle on, but Ningen being the global main amongst us, what do you think's going on with the Global World Tournament?
Yeah, I do not know. I obviously they weren't really clear, I guess, unless they were specifically. I actually can't remember. I think they might have mentioned it was like the active skill thing or something, but it broke for some reason. So they said it would be postponed, but now it's been how long since then, and we haven't had another one. And we were already 3 world tournaments behind JP. And so now JP's having another one started today, which means we're now 4 world tournaments behind them. So, I mean,
Cooking, baby. Cooking.
Obviously with, you know, the stuff that we're going to talk about after this as well, with, you know, what's going on with the end of the year and how it kind of looks like the sync is definitely not going to be happening as quickly as some of us might have liked. There is still time to catch up, but like the more world tournaments we get behind, the harder it's going to be, because if you think about what is the average for like a world tournament on JP? Is it every like 2 months or 3 months?
2 or 3 months.
Yeah. So even if Global did one once a month back to back, JP would still have another new one before we caught up.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what they're doing in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. They should be throwing out like something like last weekend, where before these guys came, because these guys came out in the middle of the week. But this last weekend just gone, there was basically nothing to do in the game. Would have been the perfect space to put that world tournament for global. They just need to start dropping them and getting us caught up. But obviously, it hasn't happened yet. So who knows?
So
Yeah.
one thing is that this week is when they fixed the bug that was going on. So that was earlier this week, like a few days ago. So that's like they wouldn't have been able to reschedule it until this weekend, which it would have been perfect time with JP also getting it, but they're like, nah. So wait.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's
Rip.
I mean, it seems like
Yeah, for
next week
real.
won't have a data download because if you guys aren't aware, JP Global and even Dragon Ball Legends put everything from next week in this week's data download.
Mhm.
And I don't know, maybe there's like people are saying maybe there's like some holiday vacationing going on next week or something. Which it's around the holiday season, so maybe it makes sense.
Monster needs a break from those base Gokus, baby. Of course. You know what I'm saying?
So that could be a thing. And it's like probably not next weekend either, I'm assuming. So I mean, there's a chance that New Year's weekend, like last year, they dropped the World Tournament. That's what they did.
True.
Like, imagine JP gets like New Year's Dragon Fist Super Saiyan 3 Goku or Broly or something
His
like
peak.
that. But then Global's like, yeah, you guys are getting World Tournament. Enjoy.
Woo.
Yikes. Yikes. I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing, right? I feel like it's a little bit of a weird case with the World Tournament in terms of just like, I guess, how they could handle it, or like, you know, how people feel about it. Because I guarantee you, like, you know, people will not be complaining if, you know, we've discussed a couple times on the podcast, like, oh, you know, to catch up, maybe they're just going to drop a bunch of the stuff that Global is missing all on one banner. And like, I feel like definitely having something like that for World Tournament would definitely not be a bad move, right? Where it's just like, oh, all the World Tournament units in EZAs that Global hasn't gotten, just drop it all at once, and, you know, like the missions and stuff. Like, I don't think anybody would really be opposed to that for like a one-time thing, but I think the issue more so is not necessarily units. The issue is the rewards, right? Like the stones
Yeah.
that you get from, you know, the different like points and stuff like that, and obviously the orbs and the you know, like local reward characters you get, stuff like that. That is obviously the main issue at play if they were going to do something like that. You know, to be able to basically like I don't know, satiate our hunger almost for you know, just getting the sync to happen already. So it is very interesting though, right? And I think that that is definitely something to think about for sure, that is really interesting. And another big point for why the sync probably won't happen soon is, unfortunately, it's like the little things, right? Like overall, I feel like there's so many things that it's like, yeah, they could just do it. But it's the little things like that that you have to think about, like, well, there's this and that and the other thing that kind of prevent it from happening right away. But with that being said, let's actually talk about the World Tournament units just real quick. We'll just give them a small little spotlight. We'll give them a little overall summary of our thoughts here. Obviously, with this World Tournament, we got a bunch of stuff. Of course, the new World Tournament unit being the Fizz Bojack, as well as a bunch of other brand new updates for some other cards. Of course, Piccolo Jr., Goku dashing forward. I think that's the Fizz Fiku, right? That's the SSR of him.
Yep.
The classic Super Saiyan Whiskey Goku, and the AGL Super Saiyan 1 Gohan. Obviously, these guys are World Tournament units, so it's not like they're going to be anything too crazy. But Minato, obviously, you being my fellow JP main, and I know you're a hardcore World Tournament grinder, baby.
Uh-huh.
How are you feeling overall about these units?
I think the units, like for the past few previous world tournaments, I think that the batches were too weak in terms of what they're doing. But I think this world tournament batch is actually pretty good. There's some really valuable units here. I mean, first off, we have on the screen the Super Saiyan Youth Gohan. This guy's like by far the best world tournament unit we've gone, I think, ever. He's actually like really stupid. Like this guy is like red zone viable. Like you could run him in red zone Fusion Zamasu. So this character, essentially, if you have a full Super Saiyan, or if you have a Super Saiyan or movie heroes category ally in the same turn, he has a total 70% chance to dodge. He's supporting superclass allies key 2 and 30% attack and defense. And if the whole team is superclass, it ends up being 3 key and 40% attack and defense. So he's supporting as well. He has multiplicative stats for 5 turns after dodging. So obviously with a 70% chance to dodge, he gets the multiplicative stats. Then he's stacking permanently.
Dang.
Now
He is good. What?
yeah, he's doing so much. It's kind of stupid. Now keep in mind the stacks are only like 20%, and then obviously his stats just in general, right? He's still a free to play character. He has 9,000 defense, right? His stats aren't like anything special, but 70% chance to dodge with 3 key 40% support, and then like decent stats for a free to play character. Like that's really, really good. I don't know why they decided to make this guy cracked. Dude, him and then the Tech World Tournament Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from earlier, like a few World Tournaments ago, he was really good. They just like Gohan, like this like era of Gohan. Like someone on the dev team has like a super soft spot for this guy, or something like that, right? Because these guys are good. I mean, like this guy, like I would use this guy over Super Trunks, like.
We love Super Trunks Predator, baby. That's her.
Real Super Trunks.
They're not gonna like that.
I should make that a tweet.
Oh man,
That is perfect tweet material.
Yes,
right
but he's really, really good. And there are a couple other characters. I don't know if y'all want me to like just take over for the rest of the characters here.
yeah, because funnily
don't-
enough, because the wiki's not updated, I'm looking now on Dokkan info, but I hadn't actually even seen the
look at my
information for the
translations, the correct
Haha.
ones. My
Yeah, I mean,
translations
that's
that
the
are
Flash
pins,
translation.
man.
But yeah,
What
man,
is this?
You take it away.
Okay, but next we have the physical base form Goku that we talked about, and this is from the 23rd World Tournament, actually. Well, he's 23rd World Tournament Goku, right? He's actually kind of similar to the Tech one, funny enough. So he's also guarding, right? He has a guaranteed guard and a 70% chance to crit if there's an extreme class enemy, which is obviously pretty good. I think having just that guaranteed guard. He has multiplicative stats, again, 120% stats on turns and 120% on super attack. He does get like the Kel and Caulifla buff, so you want to use him with World Tournament, Warriors Raised on Earth, and then Turtle School category allies. And then each of them get 10% attack and defense. So if a character's in all 3 of those teams, he gets 30%. It does work like LR Co and Caulifla does. So I mean, if you have him on a team with all those characters and he's guarding, as a floating unit, I think he could be pretty good. He's kind of like just a free to play version of the Tech World Tournament Goku. Like he's not doing the additionals or anything like that, but like he will be like a decent character, like an actual like character you could use in the red zone stages as a floating unit, because he has that guard ability, which I think is really, really cool. The only thing I would change about this guy is that his super attack effect, he only raises attack for the turn, and he does have a 70% chance to stun, which I think is pretty decent, actually. But add defense raise to that turn, and then that would be really, really good. Maybe even like make the stun chance a high chance, and then make it attack and defense for the turn. That's all I would change for him. But he's actually like a pretty decent character, too. I am definitely a big fan of what he's doing. Next, we also have the STR, Super Saiyan Goku. He's like a decent character. You want to run him with Super Saiyans and superheroes allies. As long as you have 2 or more, he does become an orb changer. And the thing about him is that he changes specifically AGL to STR. So, like, you know, earlier we were talking about the Int Super Saiyan trio and how they change like a random type to a specific type. It's like that's random, obviously, so you can't control what orbs change. But this one, it's like you could set ahead of time. You're like, okay, I know next turn this Goku is going to be on rotation. I could bring these orbs down, and then get a bunch of these AGL and STR orbs together, and then he changes the STR orbs, the AGL key spheres to STR, right? And then bam, you have a bunch of STR orbs right there. That'd be pretty sick. Outside of that, like he does an additional great chance to super. He has a high chance to crit built in. Pretty decent multiplicative stats, attack and defense raised for the turn on super attack. Right, he's like a decent character. I wouldn't say he's anything crazy, but he's like a nice like filler option for a free to play player for sure. And you know, if we're talking about weaker events, like even like Battlefield and stuff, like this guy could still have use there. Orb changing could be nice, right? You never know what, like especially since we're getting these fights now, like Android 13, where you want to grab specific key spheres. It could always be useful to have a key sphere changer just as a free to play option. And I think his defenses probably are going to be at least decent if he's like getting a lot of super attacks off. So I do like this guy quite a bit. I think he is pretty useful. Next, we have the physical Bojack. At least that's what I have right here. Physical Bojack. This guy is actually really good. I'm not sure. Yeah, there he is right there on the screen. Physical Bojack. He's crazy. So he has a lot of conditions, but essentially, if you're running a total extreme class space traveling warriors team, this guy has guard against all attacks guaranteed. He's providing key to and 30% support to all allies. And then he has, again, attack and defense on super attack and defense start of turn. He has a 50% attack and defense raise on a super attack effect. And then, like I said, he's guarding. So, like, he's, from what I saw some calculations about this guy's defense. He's getting, like, 500k defense range with guard as a floating support character. That's good. Like, that's actually useful. And eventually this guy will easy as well. If New Year's is like some Bojack celebration or something like that, and then we get like a new like full power Bojack Dokkan Fest, and this guy's like floating on that team, like he'll be really cooking. I do like this guy a lot on the Space Traveling Warriors team, and it's nice because it's like you can see with these characters, they're kind of like limited to being run on certain teams, but then on those certain setups, they actually are pretty decent or really good compared to, you know, units that are just good everywhere, but then outside of that, it's like, well, they're good, they can be used everywhere, but they're not good in the first place, right? You know what I mean? Compared to a unit being restricted to a certain team, but they're actually pretty useful. That's how they should make these free-to-play characters, right? I like that quite a bit. The final unit here, just to talk about him real quick again, Esterma Jr. I would say he's probably potentially the worst character of this batch, either him or that Super Saiyan Goku, to be honest. But like he still seems like he's decent. And fights where you could debuff and stun, he's really good. He has a 25% debuff of attack and defense if there's a super class enemy. So like let's say maybe you're a player new to the game and you're struggling being able to beat the Esther Vegeta Blue mission, or maybe even if you're not a new player and you have this guy, you easy him, he has a 25% debuff in that fight or something like that. Maybe there's a super battle road stage you're struggling in. He does have that. He has the medium chance to stun all enemies if they're above 70% HP. So he could potentially just stun all the enemies for you, right? But outside of that, he's, again, just very basic, right? He doesn't really have any, like, defensive mechanics or, like, orb changing or stuff that the other characters have. Like, you know, like Bojack and the Goku have guard, that Gohan has a dodge, right? This guy is, like, debuffing stunning for super battle and stuff like that, which it is useful to have that, right? For sure. I definitely do like that. Which is pretty cool. And it's something I realized, it says on at least on the Dokkan info, he has a 30% attack and defense raise, but it's listed as 50% raise for some reason. So I don't know if that's like in the data it's raised, it says 50%. I don't know if that's actually accurate or not, but yeah, he has a giant form. His giant form is like okay. It's like a rare chance. I mean, if you get it off and you're using this guy, that does potentially nullify just the super attacks in general for that turn potentially. So that could be useful, right? Like he's like a decent option too. And the only issue with this guy, he has the same name as the Intma Jr. They're both Piccolo Jr. giant form from what I recall. So that's the biggest thing for him, is that like if you have Intma Jr., you kind of don't really want to run this guy. You'd rather just run the Int one, especially because you don't want to worry about not linking, right? And that's basically it for all these World Tournament units. I think overall they did pretty good with these characters. I'm really a fan of the Gohan and Bojack. Goku, the base form of Goku, I'm also a fan of. I think he's pretty solid, but yeah, those are I can see myself using those characters in actual like difficult content. So I'm very excited to be able to easy those characters and take them into some content.
Awesome. Thank you, Minato, for the World Tournament special report. Awesome.
Yeah. There you go.
Absolute W.
Coming to
Well,
global
thank you.
one day.
At some
global.
point,
Eventually.
whatever.
Oh, I do want to note before we end this World Tournament segment.
Yeah.
Next World Tournament, I looked into it, is when high school Gohan's going to use EA. And if you guys are aware about him, he's a support unit that has already 58% damage reduction. He
Yeah,
will
that's
use EA next World Tournament.
He got his TUR awakening and then was still relevant in the game for ages after that, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we've seen future Gohan, Egil, Zamasu, like a lot. Like obviously they're summonable, but like, it's because of damage reduction. Like balancing damage reduction is very hard for the devs. So a lot of times they're just like, yeah, screw it, you know, because 58% reduction is such a high number.
Yeah.
Even if they give him like 100% extra stats plus the easy stats, like he'll probably be able to take normals in like every event already. And it's like as a floating support, that's like all you really need. That's all you really want to ask for, right? Especially as a free character. So hopefully he'll be good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Nice.
All right. Well, with World Tournament being set straight, let's go ahead and talk about New Year's. But before we get to our little discussion on that, with obviously that being a very exciting piece we have coming up, a quick little reminder, of course, that if you guys would like to support the podcast and, of course, have any questions or comments, shout out, all that good stuff, we will be reading all of your donations and super chats at the end of the show. So stick around for that. We always get some very good questions, so it's always a good time. Now, we do have a very, very big celebration coming after what we are in the middle of now, which, of course, is our Christmas banner. We are coming up on the New Year's celebration, which is obviously a very big one. Of course, this is a dual Dokkan Fest. It has been for every year. And of course, last year was obviously a super big deal. Get it? Dragon Ball superhero, big deal. Because of the fact that, of course, last year, with the release of Superhero earlier in that year, we got the Fizz Ultimate Gohan and the Power Awakening Piccolo, which of course transformed into Orange Piccolo, and Gohan had the active skill with Gohan Beast. Now, obviously, it kind of remains to be seen if those units are going to be LRs again. I know a lot of people kind of feel like, including myself, that it's probably just because it was a special case scenario that they were LRs for that time. But obviously, right, there are a couple of more hints that Global could potentially not be getting it this time, which I know that you two kind of have a little bit more info on that than I do. I know what's going down, but I know y'all got the specifics. Y'all got the deets. Obviously, then, right, that would be interesting to see what will be next on Global if New Year's is not going to be synced this year. So, I'm not sure which one of you got the deets on that, though. I know you two have been colluding over there for that one. So,
I think Minato knows more about, because I've seen what people have been saying, right? Which is that apparently some of the missions or something in the news for Global ends later than JP or something like that. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. So to explain, I guess, I always have to do the explaining around here. Oh my goodness. I'm the info dump. Oh, okay, but well, first things first, I do want to say that on JP, we have the cooler movie story events that Global doesn't have, but then on both versions we have the Lord Slug story event and then the Android 13 story event, right? Now that's live with the Extreme Z areas relevant to it. Now, if you guys aren't aware, on January 4th, the JP version is going to be getting rid of those Extreme Z areas for those events specifically.
Oh, right. We talked about that last time. Yeah.
And then they're going to merge them into a movie version, right? Yeah. So it's going to be a new event. It's going to be the same medals and stuff like that, but since it's a new event, it's going to be like new stages that I think you have to re-clear. So if you haven't cleared those and gotten all the missions, I recommend doing that.
I need to
or
do
else
that.
you'll just miss on stones forever. That's that was not announced for global, and it still is announced on global. So that's one thing. Another thing is that those events on JP last all the way until the 22nd, at least the story events. They last until the 22nd, which is when the New Year's countdown is going to be. Not New Year's countdown, my bad. The anniversary countdown is going to be, right? Which is the 22nd of January, specifically. Global has those events leaving on the 4th, which makes sense because that's when the Extreme Z areas technically are also scheduled to leave. So it's like, well, first thing, why would Global get the new Extreme Z area on the 4th like JP would if the story events are also leaving earlier? Doesn't make sense, right? And obviously, you know what happened last year on like January 4th, 5th? We got the New Year's EZAs for Blue Gogeta and then Physical Broly, which obviously was part of the New Year's campaign. And we're thinking New Year's this year is going to be movies because of that Extreme Z area.
Right.
So it's just odd if Global could theoretically still get the New Year's units, but not get the EZAs for some reason, like the free-to-play EZAs. It would be weird though. They kind of did it last year with Gohan and Cell, but I feel like they're not gonna do that again, especially for free-to-play character EZAs. I just think like I wouldn't see the reason why not.
Right.
But it's like those things are happening, and it's really making it seem like New Year's might not be same time, especially because like it would make no sense otherwise, and especially because the events are lasting longer anyways on JP. And if it's a movie celebration, then why would those events leave theoretically, right? So that's the biggest issue there in terms of Global not getting it at the same time. But what do you guys think now that I kind of gave you the info dump?
Very interesting. I mean, here's the thing, right? I feel like, I don't know, because so that change, right, is not happening for a little while, correct?
Yeah. So
it's like, not happening until next year, right?
Yeah, the 4th.
Right. So, well, okay, next year being like, not that far away next year. I got you. I don't know. I feel like maybe that could just be something that Global would add like later in, just like at a later date in the news or something like that, because I feel like at this point, we've had New Year's be a dual celebration for a couple of years now.
No, it was just
have we
last year.
not? Was it just last year? I thought there was 1 year before that too. Was there not?
There was not. The year before was Goku and Kid Buu, and that was like the last thing before 7th anniversary, right?
That's right. Right. And then that became something else on Global.
We want to keep in mind last year was special because of the movie. They stated like we made this LRs in the same time because of the movie. That's why I think TURs for New Year's is going to happen again because LRs were like the movie thing, right? And another thing is it would be weird if because since the events are leaving permanently the Extreme Z area, they are giving us a warning in a month ahead so people do them and don't forget to do them. So why would they give global players such a shorter notice unless they just take global players?
I mean, not that.
I just feel like it wouldn't. They would have announced it in the actual celebration news, right? That's just like JP kind of did.
Yeah.
So, because like in the JP celebration news, it literally says, "This is the last time the reprint will be held, as it will be integrated into the movie version. Please be sure to do the missions to get the rewards." Why not? Like they would note it on Global, and the cooler one is even up on Global, whilst it's up on JP, and those are the ones that are going to be mixed together. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it means the cooler one would be going away without even having a chance to finish it if you hadn't done it without using keys, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which doesn't really make sense. I mean, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Does that make sense then, though, for Global schedule? And how they would then release units?
So, well, the problem is, obviously, Global is behind by quite a few units now. And so it's one of those things that for Global to catch up, obviously we can't just keep having things all at the same time. Because you think the last part of the year we've had Heroes, then we went straight into 21, and now the LR Super Saiyan Trio. So essentially the last 3 releases in Dokkan have been on both versions at the same time. So obviously, I mean, I'm sure I speak for, I would say almost, if not every single global player, that we would rather have the New Year's stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where the game obviously at some point needs time to catch up. So I feel like that's what they're potentially going to do. The problem is, I mean, I don't agree with it at all, to be very clear. Like, it seems very weird to me that if their goal, even if they're not going to start doing it as soon as we would have liked, if their goal is for the timelines to both be synced eventually, taking a celebration that was synced last year and then unsyncing it is like a step backwards rather than a step forwards towards that goal, right? So it seems very odd to do that. Especially because that messes up the whole year. Because remember, like, obviously, hopefully they won't keep as long a delay as they have done in the previous years, but the New Year's dual Dokkan Fests for JP, when they weren't same time, would then come out way later in the schedule for Global, which would then mess up the stuff that was coming out at that time, potentially. So it's just huge changes in the schedule all around, which... And of course, the thing that makes it even worse is you think if Global isn't going to get the same time New Year's dual Dokkan Fest, then chances are we're most likely going to get the next unit that you would imagine in the schedule that we're missing, which is going to be Super Trunks, which is such an unhyped release for so many people.
It's so funny,
and like,
because
you imagine if JP, let's say, to take the examples that we've given on the podcast a couple of times, but like, let's say that it was a new Dragon Fist Goku, or even to take it that one step further, because I've seen people talking about it, whilst I think it'd be more likely for Anniversary than New Year, but imagine if it was actually finally playable Beast Gohan, and then Global's getting Super Trunks. Like, I'd be so unhyped for the end of the year or the beginning of the new year for Global.
Super Trunks.
So yeah, it's a bit disappointing. It's a bit disappointing to think that it could be going that way, because obviously I was really hoping that we were going to have New Year's shared again, but
I feel like that was like the general expectation, because they've never unsynced a celebration before.
Exactly. But, like, they did Golden Week for the first time together with the Super Saiyans, and then the next year we had Golden Week at the same time again. So yeah, and it's then the year after that as well, right? So it's been 3 Golden Weeks in a row now, right? So
yeah, it's
was Cell and Goku Golden Week dual Dokkan Fest? Yeah, so it was the Cell, the GT Super Saiyans, then Cell and Goku, and then 23rd World Tournament. So, like, you'd assume they're not going to go back to it not being at the same time. So, for them doing that now for New Year's seems very, it's very disappointing for Global, I think.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it's going to be the 2 most unhyped releases of the year, Super Trunks and Omega. January is going to feel dead on Global. Like, at least I would say, at least with Omega, you get the Omega fight, and then
you do get content with Omega at least.
You get the easy for Super Baby 2, which I actually kind of like. I think he's cool.
Yeah.
And another thing is, obviously, it sucks more that the New Year celebration is pushed behind. But what's gonna happen is, this happened with the New Year celebration in 2021, where obviously Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Kid Buu was obviously not the same time. That banner was in April, and it had tickets, I believe, right? If I'm not mistaken, it did have tickets you get when summoning. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I saw Annie or Ziad mention that, whereas like Global had tickets for those banners. I mean, Negan, you could probably confirm as well. I don't know if you remember.
I think it is the case, yeah.
I think that it had tickets, right? And after that will be the Golden Week celebration as well. I guess the one thing that sucks is that Golden Week on JP will have the New Year's units, whilst on Global there will not be the New Year's characters that you would have to before. But it would also have tickets, right? So that's one thing to consider. And you could argue, if they play their cards right, this could be like, it may not seem like it could be the quicker alternative, but it could be. Now the reason why is they could do New Year's for JP the entire month. Global gets Trunks and Omega. Then in April, what they do is April JP gets a Dokkan Fest. Global gets the New Year's banner, but then for the second half of April, just make that Yellow Coin LR same time.
That's not a bad idea.
But then in that situation, it technically would make things faster, because it's just putting that part 2 LR that would be in April that wouldn't be in January if it was same time there, so that it would technically make it faster. If they do that, is one thing I was thinking, which is not impossible to think about if they want to kind of speed the schedule up from there. And it would actually move the schedule up 2 weeks ahead, rather than if it was right now and it was same time with JP, it probably would not, like, they wouldn't put Omega in the middle of January, probably, right?
Mhm.
But I think that's something they could do potentially, right? It depends on what they how they want to handle things. I don't global Dokkan is so funny, isn't it?
Yes,
Right.
That's one word.
They are very silly.
Even me explaining it, I think maybe could sound a little confusing, but I think you guys get what I'm trying to say, right? How it would, like,
I think so.
technically move the schedule up an extra 2 weeks,
Mm.
because, like, if it was same time as GP, it probably would be the exact same schedule. But then since it's not going to be, they could just in April have the Dual Dokkan Fest, then that Yellow Coin LR to make it same time as well, right? But
Yeah. It's just
we'll see.
interesting to see how they're going to fit it all in, because there's so much stuff that Global is missing now. And it's just like we've always said in the past, every time Global has, even before the sync was announced, every time Global has gotten really close to catching up with JP,
Yeah.
it's always just the same problem, that Global is slowly but surely catching up, but JP's always releasing new stuff as well. So unless they decide to do something to actually, drop multiple things within a short space of time, then it's not going to be able to catch up. So be interesting to see what they do. But
I mean, it's really these like New Year's. New Year's is the only celebration of the year that doesn't, like, have something dropped in the second half, right? So
True, because then it
That's-
goes into
that-
January, which is like nothing.
yeah,
Almost,
a
usually.
JP, it's like the New Year's banners comes out the end of December, and then we don't get another banner until the end of January. So, like, a whole
Yeah.
month without any extra banner that drops out. So
Yeah.
if it's a situation where in April, Global, instead of having that whole month of April be only that Dual Dokkan Fest banner, they also drop that Yellow Coin RLR at the same time, it would technically speed things up. And then at that point, Omega and Super Trunks would also already be out, right? That's my
Interesting.
prerogative of how things would be, because they probably wouldn't drop that LR if it was in January, obviously, right? Like, they wouldn't put the New Year celebration and then Omega. I feel like that's
Yeah.
something they maybe wouldn't do, but who knows, right? It depends. I still think that should have been same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
that's all I
agree.
have to say about the sync stuff. With the
Yeah.
New Year's. Stupid.
I think the only thing is I do really agree with Ningen on this point, that I feel like it's just so weird that they're going from a celebration being synced to them, like, quote unquote unsyncing it, right? That just, like, seems like such a strange thing to do. And not to mention, right, you would think, like, oh well, now that they already did it once and they've taken that opportunity, and it's just like, it's already happened, so why not just continue the trend?
It's like I said, it's what makes it strange is the fact that they have announced that they are going to be syncing eventually. Like, if they had never announced that and we were still left in this limbo of, like, a whole bunch of us in the community hoping that one day it will happen, but they've never mentioned it or anything, then them unsyncing it, whilst it would still be disappointing, it would be a lot easier to accept as, like, oh well, they just did it as a one-off because it was for superhero. But now that they've announced that the games are gonna be syncing the schedules, like, a few months ago, it just makes it seem, like I said, it's like a step backwards from the goal that they're supposedly trying to work towards, to now have a celebration that was same time now not be same time, which is odd. But I guess it is what it is, as they say.
Yeah. It is a certified Dokkan Battle moment for sure.
It is. It is.
Oh man, they love to do funny stuff like this, though. I mean, to be fair, right? I guess at least the nice thing is, since we've been in the thick of it for so long, it's like, even if they whatever they decide to do, whichever way they decide to go, it really isn't surprising. I don't think either way. It's just like, yep, good old Dokkan. So, well, we will see. Obviously what they plan to do with that coming up here. I will say it will be very interesting if they do decide to have the releases be synced, and then obviously the whole thing of the Extreme Z area in the news, that will be very interesting. But on the topic of the New Year's units, obviously, we had a pretty special announcement that I'm sure probably went under the radar for a lot of people because obviously, when it comes to announcements, we got the announcement for the Jump Festa stream, which will be, I think, technically tomorrow, maybe the next day. I think it depends on your time zone. But for Jump Festa, right, which if you are unfamiliar with Jump Festa, your boys got you on this one. I can put my little knowledge cap on and lay something fresh on you for this one. Basically, Jump Festa is something that they do every single year in Japan, where it is a giant celebration of everything Shonen Jump related. Basically, every single series that is under the Shonen Jump umbrella gets this big event where they basically talk about all of the new stuff that is going to be coming related to the property for the next year, right? Whether that be new anime, whether that be new manga, right? New merchandising. Obviously, for us on the Dokkan Battle side of things, they always have a Dokkan Battle stage where they talk about updates to Dokkan at Jump Festa, which is always pretty cool. And of course, last year, that was where we got the announcement of the Orange Piccolo and the Gohan Beast, right? Which was obviously super hype and very cool too, because that didn't get leaked at all. And, that was just kind of out of nowhere that announcement happened. So that was pretty awesome for those of us who were actually watching the stream, which I know definitely I'm going to be doing that again this year because I always love to do those Jump Festa streams. They're always such a good time. But with that being said, like we were talking about, the last couple of years, they have revealed the anniversary characters at Jump Festa for Dokkan. So probably tomorrow we will get that reveal. However, I know we've been discussing it a little bit on the podcast here for a couple of episodes because obviously we've been very excited for New Year's. But do you two have any predictions, some last minute couple of guesses, just real quick, as to what we will be getting for the New Year's Dokkan Fest?
I think I have a couple of ideas. How many do you have, Negan? Might just rapid fire them.
I honestly, I don't know. I don't really have any ideas, to be honest. I mean, there's dual
Okay,
Dokkan Fest I would like to see, but I feel like we've got to the point now where predicting anything is almost impossible because they just drop such random things sometimes. The thing with like the Super Saiyan trio, they gave a hint that was fairly obvious, so everybody kind of knew straight away. But like, I don't think people, even though it was one of the predictions floating around, I think if they hadn't dropped any hint at all, people wouldn't have been in a sort of general consensus that like, oh yeah, it's going to be this, because there were some ties, I guess, with like the Android 21 loosely being related to Android 13 and therefore Android 13 movie. But like, prediction wise, I don't want to make any predictions, but in terms of like dual Dokkan Fest, I would like to see. I do think, as you said earlier, it would be weird for them to do Beast Gohan and Orange Piccolo like again for New Year's, even though technically they didn't do it before, but that's a whole other can of worms, right? But,
Yuck.
but I feel like they are, if they're going to do standalone Beast and Orange Piccolo, they're probably more likely for something bigger than New Year's. I don't know. Dragon Fist Goku is something that we talked about a lot, which I think would be cool. I know a lot of people want... I say a lot of people, but the OG fanboys, we want I should say. I like OG Dragon Ball, but Kid Goku and Demon King Piccolo. But yeah, I don't know. In terms of what I think would be great, I feel like Dragon Fist Goku, and then like we talked about last week, them doing like a Tapion or just a straight up Hirudegarn, I think would be pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to see. There's a couple of options I think it might be that aren't necessarily ones that I would pick. So I'll see what Minato has to say, and then if he doesn't mention any ones that I don't really want that I can think of, I'll chime in with those as well. But
so yeah, I'm thinking there's a couple options. I think you mentioned Dragon Fist, right?
Yep.
Broly and let's say Super
that's the
Saiyan
big
Gohan,
one.
like that one, right? I mean, we have Tech Broly's EZA. Second oldest EZA,
Or
right?
Super Broly and Blue Gogeta, right? Standalone is a big one.
Yeah. Well,
True.
I feel like that should be LRs too, to be honest.
Potentially.
My opinion, they could also do Super Saiyan God Vegeta versus Broly.
Yes.
That would be
That
cool.
could be really
That would
cool.
be cool. I'd be
We
down for that.
have the 5-year anniversary Broly. He's the only 5-year anniversary character that doesn't have an EZA. I think it's still EZA Tech Broly. I think Super Saiyan God Vegeta deserves to get a Dokkan Festival. And we don't
I
really
agree.
have his transformation game, right? I think a lot
Yeah.
of his animations, a lot of fewer Broly animations are not really well represented that we could get.
Yep.
I think that would be really cool. And I still will throw out the idea of DB Saga, which is really weird. You'd be like, why DB Saga? And I saw someone bring this up the other day. It was like, obviously we're getting the movies like version Red Zone, not Red Zone, the movies version Extreme Z area. And people are like, oh, that's gonna be movies themed. LR Goku and Arale is a movies character.
Oh, bring
So,
back the Arale banner.
Easy.
Oh, don't do this to me.
I don't think they would do that, but the LR Goku and Arale free to play character.
Oh,
Easy
yeah.
them, their movies character. Bam, simple, easy. And we get Dragon Ball Saga Kid Goku versus DKP. And then keep in
That'd be
mind that Goku, remember the tech Goku that's going to be an LR? He has not
Mhm.
awakened yet
Oh yeah,
to an LR. That guy.
that's true.
I don't know if you guys remember it. In fact, I'm gonna
I
find him.
kind of forgot about him, to be honest.
Yeah, everyone forgot about him because they haven't done anything with this boy.
Yeah.
Right? We're still
Yeah.
waiting to see what they're gonna do with him. He awakens during the what celebration did he awaken during? I forgot what this like Dragon Ball story came out. It came
Yeah.
out in May. He awakened during that's Turles, like the second half, right, of the Turles celebration. That's when he awakens, right, in May. So it's been a long time, and I feel like that it could be a good opportunity to just drop him, right? I think as like maybe again they give him the LR, and then they make the movies easy. Goku and Arale, like I've seen that idea thrown around. I think that would be pretty cool potentially if they want to do something like that. But who knows? Who knows? I think those are like my 3 kind of ideas about this and how they're gonna handle that. Yeah,
Interesting.
it would also be a buff to if it would also be Annie said in chat. It would be a buff to Limit Breaker Vegito. He's Janet Power.
That is true. That is true. I didn't even
There
think
you
about
go.
that. Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
So-
in terms of me, just to, I pretty much agree with everything that these guys said. Obviously, Dragon Fist is a big one for me because I'm a huge Super Saiyan 3 fan.
Yeah.
I would love if they did Gohan Beast and Orange Piccolo again, or again. But obviously it just seems kind of weird to do that, quote unquote 2 years in a row. In terms of why, like, I don't know about wild picks, but some other things that weren't mentioned, Natsu did kind of mention this earlier in there. But I do think it would be cool to maybe get a new version of the BoJack movie Gohan.
Yeah.
And
Gohan
I
versus
think,
BoJack as like a dual Dokkan Fest would be really cool, I think.
yeah, I think that would be awesome. They could do like a side banner unit, Vegeta or Trunks or something like that. And hey, I've talked about in the past, I am on record saying that I love the BoJack movie, and I do like the latter half of the BoJack movie, but my favorite part about the BoJack movie is the beginning part, the tournament arc with all the Z fighters. So getting some characters from that, even if it was just some free-to-play units.
Is it TN versus Trunks is quite cool?
Yeah, TN versus Trunks, and then obviously Krillin got some time to shine in there too.
What would be cool is, was it Tech? Technically STR BoJack needs an EZA. I feel like is it too early for him? Because I was going to say Tech Zanya, but she's his side banner unit, so she won't EZA until he does. But Awaken and EZA, that random, was it the SR Gokua?
Oh, true.
Have the side banner. Have the side banner unit be one of the
idea.
side banner units be the Trunks that fights him. Because I love the
where he
BoJack
gives
movie
him
Trunks
the
is one of my favorite
punch.
designs. Because obviously, surprise, surprise, I'm a big fan of long hair Trunks. But the BoJack movie Trunks, when he goes Super Saiyan after Goku turns into the same like beefy pale green form that Bojack has, and then Trunks defeats him. That's awesome. So him as the side banner unit would be pretty cool. Or to be fair, just make like a Goku the side banner unit for the new Bojack, and then Easy A the STR Bojack and Tech Zangya, and then that Bojack team would be pretty good.
Put the free play Bojack too.
Yeah,
He'll be
exactly.
Okay,
See, he's just coming out, right? So that'd be pretty
We're
cool.
cooking with a celebration here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Okay, I see the vision. There you go. You could have that moment where Trunks punches through Goku as the side banner unit for Gohan.
Yeah. Yeah, dude,
I don't know.
awesome.
That sounds like a pretty good celebration to me.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, so that's basically it for our New Year's predictions. Obviously, we will see what Jump Festa holds. I am sure that they're going to be dropping some heat. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. Obviously, if you're not going to be tuning into what's up.
You know, there's one that I thought of, but it's one of those things now that we kind of know that they're not going to be LRs. I don't think they would do this for a non-LR. But, you know, everyone's been talking about, it's kind of been a running joke, right, that Dokkan doesn't have playable beasts and all these other games do. But there's been a recent thing, of course, for people who are aware, who follow both games. The fact that Legends, I don't even know if the unit is actually good, but Legends have just released the Bardock and Goku unit. Imagine if we got a dual Dokkan Fest, which, again, they probably would be LRs if they did this, but imagine we got a dual Dokkan Fest that was Goku and Bardock, and then Cooler and Frieza. Like, that would be so good. Like,
dude,
the
that'd be
ultimate
weird.
what if, like, New Year's dual Dokkan Fest. That'd be crazy.
That'd be sick.
But yeah, I
See
can't see them being TURs somehow.
Oh, dude, that would be so cool though, because I will say, like, obviously it's more so for Legends, right? With, of course, you know, Legends is kind of now willing to do more like, you know, game original characters where the LFs, like, their reasoning for being is from the story, right? Rather than, like, you know, something from the Dragon Ball series. But Dokkan could easily do the same thing. I mean, obviously we got that for Trunks and Broly, but of course that was because of the quest mode, right? They could easily, if they want to do some shenanigan of, like, you know, justifying two characters. I mean, they don't even have to have any justification. They could just do it because it's cool. But if they really wanted to have something, they could just introduce a story event where, you know, the story event explains the reasoning behind why these two characters are partnering up for the unit. That's something that they could definitely do. So if they decide to go that route, I would definitely not mind having that be copied from Legends. So that would be pretty cool for sure. Yeah, I would definitely be down for that. But anyhow, yeah, we will obviously be seeing what we are going to be getting for New Year's very, very soon. It's kind of crazy. This is like I feel like this always, maybe it's just because, you know, of course, I gotta mention our good old pal Dragon Ball Heroes, right? It always kind of feels like this time of year where it's like, man, we get the Heroes announcement so early, and then we have to wait so long for it, and then we get the New Year's announcement so early, and then we have to wait so long for it. It's just like, man, so much waiting happens during this time of year, but it's kind of great because it builds up all the hype. So, but anyhow. Moving on from New Year's, keep your eyes peeled, obviously, on your local Twitter timeline. And, of course, I'm sure a bunch of content creators, including myself, will be reacting to the Jump Festa stream. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. Yeah, it's always a fun time. I mean, they always show tons of, like, really fun stuff on it, whether you're there for Dokkan or not. So it's pretty cool. But anyhow,
there's gonna be a whole section for Sandlands.
Yeah. Oh, bro, Sandland has its own day for Jump Festa. All the Dragon Ball stuff is on the second day, bro. They said, "Oh, Sandland, the go." Yo, bet. Man, Sandland. What a funny situation that is with Sandland. We love Sandland though, even though we haven't seen it yet. We love Sandland though. Anyhow, we did just want to give you a little reminder before we moved on to our final segment of the stream. Obviously, we do know what the EZAs are for Android 13 and for Trunks, but obviously at the moment, they are not officially implemented in game, and obviously the EZA is not out yet. So we will be discussing them next week. Obviously, along with whatever other info that we get coming up here So definitely look forward to that. Obviously, it just kind of makes more sense to talk about them when, they actually come out in game. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our final segment of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, everyone's favorite segment, we have the trash takes. Oh boy. Yes, I'm sure you are all looking forward to this. Of course, with this being my week 2 host, your boy was the one who picked this week's trash take, and I actually thought that this trash take was quite interesting. If I do say so myself, this was the reason why I picked it specifically, because there was a couple other things that felt a little bit more me-esque in, a trash take that I would pick as something to discuss. But I felt that this one would be a very interesting discussion piece. And not to mention, I also did want to kind of weigh in a little bit because I did have some thoughts about this one, but I figured this would be a good one for the group. We're doing it for the boys this week, you know what I'm saying? So, without further ado, as you can see, our trash take on the screen there says, a new unit not being viable for every red zone event does not make it a bad unit. There is lots of playable content in the game where they can still get plenty of use. So this is a really interesting take in my opinion. I will say, unfortunately, I did actually reach out on the podcast account to see if we could get a little bit more info for this. However, I realized after I had picked this take, and I actually forgot to tell you boys about this, so whoops, sorry.
Okay.
This guy doesn't actually follow the podcast Twitter account, so he must have seen it from one of our Twitter accounts, which is so funny that I picked it, and I was trying to figure out why I couldn't DM him, hey, what's, can you give us a little bit more info, please? And lo and behold,
told me. Oops.
Yeah, I should have. I didn't even think about it. I was like, huh? And then I realized it was not in fact Twitter being Twitter, but it was in fact, just he didn't follow us. So make sure you follow us on the Slot One Super Podcast Twitter account, of course, linked in the description. And me, Minato, and Ningen retweet that account like basically every tweet they make. So definitely follow us on there. Obviously, we appreciate you guys obviously interacting from our accounts too, but definitely go drop a follow on there. Regardless, though, unfortunately, we don't have any more context on this because the boy was not following the account. So, with all that being said, I think this is a really interesting take. My thoughts on this one are pretty simple, but I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. I understand where this guy is coming from, right? I think that, like, in a vacuum, I suppose that this take is not, like, a terrible one, right? Because obviously, I understand where he's come from. There's different types of events in the game, and obviously, different characters have different uses depending on the type of event that you're playing. But, the first half of this take, I feel like is a little, I feel like it could be a little bit, kind of iffy for me personally, because I know obviously we do have some newer red zone stages, but obviously speaking every red zone, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of a lot to put under one umbrella. So what do you guys think about this one? Ningen, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
So I was waiting to put the poll because I know a lot of people have midway through when we've been sort of going through our reasonings, people have put their changed their minds midway through. So I'll put the poll up in a minute here for you guys. Make sure you guys check out the episodes live if you can. If you're listening to the Spotify version or you're watching the VOD, obviously we appreciate you. But if you can make it to an episode live, we have interactive segments like this. So, but yeah, I would say not only do I think that this is W take, in my opinion, I would say this is almost like unarguably correct, because there's a couple of units that spring to mind that, like, let's say for example, maybe I am just, it's my opinion at the end of the day, and I'm sure some people will disagree, so I can't say it's facts and facts, but think about one of the units that comes to mind straight away for me is Int Goku Black with his EZA, the LR, right? That unit is a beast, but he's not good against AoEs. So he's not good against Fusion Tamasu. So going by the logic of this take, like, because he's not super good against Red Zone Zamasu, he's not a bad unit. So this take is correct. Like, he's not good against Fusion Zamasu, but he's awesome, like, overall in general. So yeah, this is exactly how I feel about units. Like, I'm a big fan. I say a big fan. I feel like she was getting quite underrated. So it kind of, I feel like it's one of those things. I'll always champion units that I feel are being underrated on Twitter and stuff. But then you always get, there's always that contingent of people that will see that as you like fanboying or whatever. It's like, oh, look how much you're like, you love this unit. And it's like, no,
Right.
I actually don't like super love the Dokkan Festa Android 21. I think she's a good unit, but when I see people saying that she's trash, then it's like, okay, no, come on, boys. Like, I've got to step in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's another unit that is the exact example of that. Like, she is not good against AoEs, but she's a really good unit overall with all the stuff that she does. Now, the one thing I will say, to look at it from both sides of the argument, the counter that I can see to this kind of thing is obviously we look at the most difficult events in the game. So it's, you know, Fusion Zamasu. You could probably even say to a certain extent, like the Tech Rose and Zamasu Goku Black stage as well. And then Omega for JP and Sin for Global. And the hardest stages of the two, they do have the similar things in common, right? Which is that they do have AoEs. So going forward, we can assume, although we don't know, that new tough bosses that are going to come out are going to be having AoEs, which means those units are not going to be good against those stages as well. But I don't know. I think for me, all units have different roles. They all do different things. If a unit that's not good against AoEs makes mincemeat out of every single other stage in the game that doesn't have AoEs, I think it's really weird to then say, oh, but that unit's bad because they're not good against Fusion Zamasu. It's like, I could see, like, they're bad against Fusion Zamasu, but saying that a unit is bad because they're not good in one particular red zone stage, I think is really weird. And because, obviously, like we say, we haven't got any further context, but at least the way I read it, like, it literally says a unit not being good in every single stage doesn't mean they're a bad unit. Like, I just 100% agree with that. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's what I always say. If the unit's not good against AoEs, if they're not good against Fusion Zamasu, just don't use them against Fusion Zamasu. I mean, until we start getting all these extra missions for specific events, we're not replaying all of these events. Like, if you're not a content creator and you've beaten all of the red zone stages, you probably only play them again for fun. And when the new units come out, you want to test them out in a bunch of different events. So if a new unit comes out that you like and you think looks cool, but they're not good against AoEs, you're going to summon them and then use them in a bunch of events that don't have AoEs and then have fun using them. So I think it's one of those things, right? Like, if they were really bad in, you know, all of the Dismal Future red zone stages, because even after supering they just don't have good defense, then we could start getting into the terms of like, okay, well, maybe this is a pretty bad unit, right? But I think it's because it says every single red zone, and it just brings us back to that whole Fusion Zamasu event debacle and how much everyone hates it and AoEs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I definitely just agree with this 100%. So
Interesting. Minato, what do you think?
Actually, pretty much 100% agree with Negan. I actually don't have anything to add. But he said, a unit doesn't have to be good, like, for one stage. Like, if they're good, and there's multiple top fights in the game, right? At this point, there's Omega, Fusion Zamasu, Tech Goku Black Zamasu, even the Rose Goku Black stage, First Form Cell. You know, even some of these worldwide celebration stages, Vegito Blue, Sort of Trunks. Like, there's a bunch of difficult content in the game that we could get missions for in the future. Even like, you know, the Android 13 red zone, right? It's like we got missions for that, and that red zone is almost going to be 2 years old. And then it's like we want to use specific characters for that red zone event. It's like God Goku's really good there. Like, he's probably like the best unit for that event. Like, you could still be a good unit without having to be really good and the hardest man in the game. So yeah, I agree that this is a W take.
W.
Also, like, you know, me World Tournament, like STR Piccolo, my junior is good everywhere, so but still. Yep. So like, That's a thing, right? I think people need to understand that.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not saying hardest fight in the game is like, it's important for characters to be good there, but
Mhm.
at this point now the events are kind of in a very similar tier of power.
Right.
yeah, it's something that we come back to a lot when we talk about units, and we talked about this for a couple of different topics in the past. It comes up in trash takes a lot, as I guess, because they are often about units or events in particular. But I think it all comes back to the big thing that we touch on quite a lot is the fact that it's a game that you play to have fun. So
Yep.
it kind of goes back to the last thing I was saying, right? Like, let's take the Super Saiyan trio for example. They're not necessarily the best example because they're actually not terrible against AoEs after that, like, first turn, right? The first turn can kind of be
Right.
a bit risky, but it's one of those things. If you think that unit looks really cool and looks really fun, you're going to summon for them, and if they're not very good against Fusion to Master, you just use them in a bunch of different other events. Obviously, with the way they structure some of these special missions for celebrations now, a bunch of these new missions for either the intensifying fights or the Android 13 Red Zone are basically made for the Super Saiyan unit or their team.
Mhm.
So you can go off and do those. But yeah, like, I mean, yeah, they're not the best example because they are still really, really good against Fusion Zamasu because of their team and everything. Like, they can take a bit of damage from the AoE, but if you're rocking double leads for them with one of their best setups, that team has so much HP that them taking a bit of damage from an AoE in the first turn doesn't even really matter that much. And then they just start going off and doing tons of damage. But even units like 21, right, is probably the better example because she's just recently come out, and on, a bad turn, she's taken like 400k from Zamasu's AoE, which is really bad. So you just, I don't know. For me, it always just comes down to a very simple, like, we're in a different world. Being content creators, we want to use the new units against the difficult events, see how well they do, even if they are bad. But like, if it was me and it's like, this unit is not good in Fusion Zamasu, well, I just won't use them in Fusion Zamasu then. And if we're talking about Android 21 and they bring out a mission, 3 months from now or something, that is beat Fusion Zamasu with an Android's team. Now, if it's like the normal missions they add to Fusion Zamasu, those missions don't stop you from using items. So if I really wanted if I really want to use Android 21, I could just use items. But if they do make it a no items mission, then I just won't use her because she's not good in that event, right? Like, it's yeah, I just don't see it being the be all and end all. Now, the thing that would be an issue is if they start bringing out multiple releases in a row. Like, let's say we go 6 months, and every single new release is just terrible against the hardest events in the game, then obviously that would be bad. But when we're talking about specific units on their own, like, I just find it very strange, as I already said, to call that unit bad because there's like
Mhm.
one or two of the different events in the game that they're not good in, right? It makes much more sense to just have that clarification, to just say, like, this unit is bad in this particular stage,
Right.
and that's it, right? Like, so we could say Android 21 is bad against Fusion Zamasu, but Android 21
Yeah.
is not a bad unit. So
Right.
it's yeah, bit of a weird one. But like I say, the take itself, because of the way it's worded, I think I would. It just seems like, I mean, I might word it differently, but like I say, I agree with this. This is like something that I would say, essentially. So
Very interesting. I will say the interesting thing about this take, that was another aspect of it for me too, is I feel like this is something that people said like a couple years ago, and maybe it's just because there wasn't as much a variety for difficult content as there is now in Dokkan. But I feel like even like a couple years ago, people were like, "Oh yeah, if a unit isn't good in Red Zone, it's bad." So I think it's interesting to see how much we've kind of progressed from that point, basically.
yeah, I think it is because of the lack of diversity of the events, right? Because like
Mhm.
when the Red Zone first came out, it was the new hardest thing,
Right.
but it was obviously very limited, and we still had other events. Super Battle Road's not been that hard for a while, mainly because you can use so
Definitely
many
not, no.
items. But it's when Red Zone became the main staple of, like, this is what the hard content is now.
Right.
But we weren't getting things like the bosses have AoEs and things like that. So whilst the stages still had differing levels of difficulty, they were all difficult in the same way, which is essentially the boss can hit you really hard. So if you're a character who, after super attacking, you have really good defense, you'll be good in that stage in any one of those fights. Whereas once you start throwing AoEs into the mix, now we have a bit more variation between the different red zone stages, right? So like a unit that could destroy there are units that could do I say destroy, but there are units that could do very, very well in every single non-AoE red zone stage, but then you take them into one of those stages or against Sin and Omega, and then they're taking like 300-400k AoE attacks, and it's like, oh, well, they're not good in this stage, but they're just good in all the other ones. So
yeah.
But yeah, Broly is kind of the example. Broly's kind of the differing one, yeah, because he has the AoE super. But that's why AoEs have always been kind of a weird thing. I actually we should have mentioned it earlier, actually. I kind of forgot. I put a tweet out on the actual Slot 1 Super Podcast account. I think it went out earlier today. I'm going to put the link in the chat so people can see it, and I'll retweet it as well. But people have been talking about for quite a while their thoughts about the whole Fusion Zamasu event and how good or bad it is for the game with these whole like crazy AoEs on turn 1. Because AoEs have always been an interesting factor to the game, because Broly is a pretty good example. There were teams in the game at that time that could absolutely demolish every other red zone stage. But if you're trying to do a no item run and you get unlucky, I guess the combo, yeah, because he cancels dodge is probably the big thing. But you could get unlucky. He supers in slot 1 and you just die, like from full health, because units getting hit with a super before they've super attacked is pretty crazy. But yeah, so someone is right. Aaron is right in the chat. I think the combo of him disabling dodge made it a lot more scary, right? Because even bosses like the Cooler Core, for example, there was all the debate going on for a while in the community of, you know, was the Cooler Core actually harder than Broly? And I was always on the side that Broly was still harder because he disables dodge. Like there are units that you could take into the core and they'll just dodge his super attack, whereas units, like I say, you could take in a crazy team of some of the best units in the game, but if Broly AoE supers in slot 1 and you don't have an item up, you just die. So AoEs have always been kind of weird.
And even then, it's like you want to use items against the AoE phase, and then you get to the AGL phase where he's double supering.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, now you have to know item AGL Broly. It's like crazy. And another thing is that AoEs, I think people acting like Fusions of Masu is like, oh, like this like one-time thing. It's not even true. Like, remember Moscow? Moscow was like the second hardest fight or hardest fight in the game. And he was the turn 1 AoE super attack character, right? Phase 1 typing boss, to be fair. But like I feel like people are acting like this is new. Okay, let's look back the years from the 6th anniversary, Moscow, and then 7th anniversary we got Broly AoE. After that, for the 8th anniversary, we got Sin Shenron. Then later on during this year, Tanabata, we got Omega Shenron. Then now we have Fusion Zamasu. I probably would say the 9th anniversary difficulty event is also going to have AoEs in some fashion or form. The hardest fights in the game are a lot of times the hardest fight in the game because they can do AoE. It's not all the time, but like it's been a consistent pattern for the past few years. Like I could see, even if it's not the hardest fight in the game, 2nd or 3rd hardest fight in the game, 9th anniversary could have an AoE attack. Maybe it's like 600k AoE attacks at the end of the event, right? So, like if I would be shocked if if one of the hardest fights in the game during 9th anniversary also doesn't have AoEs. And it's like I feel like this is not a new thing, and it's not like Fusion Zamasu like can't be beaten by any team. Like 6-year-old superhero team could beat Fusion Zamasu. I said 6-year, but 6-month-old Fusion that team could beat Fusion Zamasu, right? Like pretty easily, no item that first day. So if we're getting to Fusion Zamasu thing, I think people really overrate what the fight impact is on the game itself. But rather, the designs of the characters that came out after him are not being designed to work in his favor. So, or because they are being designed to make him kill them, right? Because like we have like Android 21. For some reason, she just only gets dodge after she attacks. Gohan and Piccolo, right? They could lose a reduction mid-turn because like based on the AoE attacks, stuff like that. The the in androids, they get their damage reduction on super attack. They're doing these things purposefully. so that the units suck against Zamasu. Not because Zamasu himself is like as big of a deal in the game.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I think
don't
I've
even
heard
disagree
someone
with
say
you,
that
though.
before. I just think it's such a weird. If that is true, that's such a, like. Why are they doing that? That's so weird. But
Because they, I don't know, they just don't like these characters. Like, but they are clearly doing it. Like,
yeah, it's
but-
like they're trying
like-
to keep. It's like they're trying to keep Zamasu as like the hardest boss for some reason, right? I don't know
exactly.
why.
I mean,
but-
that's what they're doing. Because like, when's the last slot 1 character we've gotten like as a premium character? So after Worldwide, we got the androids, not slot 1. Brienne is not slot 1. Gohan and Piccolo aren't slot 1, or like, you know, or even just tanking, like being able to handle AoE attacks in slot 2 or 3. Gohan and Piccolo might be able to if they have the reduction up. Like, okay, Android 21 can't do that. LR Super Saiyans, even the first turn, the LR Super Saiyans could take, you know, some damage from normals, but they're probably like the closest. The only character that has released that could eat an AoE just fine as a brand new like premium character is Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker Vegito. So that's kind of funny, right?
The goat.
Yeah, exactly.
The GOAT, right? You know?
and
then-
even then, like obviously without the active skill to get his start of turn defense, like pre-super, he can still take damage from a super attack in slot 1 from like physical fusions of Masu, right? For example, because he hits so damn
Yeah.
hard. I mean, it is kind of true, like Crow is saying in the chat, right? Them not power creeping their latest difficult boss in a month is probably good, because I guess we
Yeah.
don't want the game to be in a state where it's like we get the worldwide celebration and then we get 2 or 3 more Dokkan Fest release, and now that event is just a joke because every new unit that's come out just destroys that stage immediately. But the only problem is, I think, and this is one of Dokkan's big problems all the time anyway, with the way they release content, is that I would be fine with them not power creeping out Zamasu if they kept occasionally dropping some events that were, you know, red zone level but maybe slightly easier than Zamasu, so the new units are able to dominate those new stages but they still struggle against Zamasu, so that keeps him as like the pinnacle difficult event in the game. Whereas instead they're just bringing out units that don't do very well against Zamasu, but they're not bringing out new difficult events that they actually are good in. So I think that's where the balance probably needs to be.
Another thing is, it's like, why not make them good like against Fusions Masu? Like, they're the brand new characters. They like you spend hundreds of stones to get, like even real life money to get, and as the new premium, like not every character that releases has to be good in that fight, but for the brand new like premium headliner character, like they should be able to at least handle it. Like, even if Android 21 could dodge before she attacks, that's not going to make Fusions of Masu fodder. Gohan or Piccolo, maybe they get some extra reduction before they attack. That's not going to make Fusions of Masu fodder. The androids, give them their damage reduction before they attack. It's like these minimal changes, like they don't have to take double digits in AoEs. They just have to be able to handle them. They're making it so that these characters take like 300, 400k.
There's a huge difference, from taking double digits to taking like 400k, right?
Like even if they took like 100k in the normal, 200k, because, or like, you know, they could dodge it, and then maybe they don't have to dodge it. That doesn't make the event invalid or make it not the hardest fight in the game anymore. But they're intentionally making them straight up suck in the events. Like Android 21, she takes like 300, 400k from the AoE before she attacks, right? Like she straight up low-key just like kind of sucks for the event. Like, not that you can't no item with her or beat the event with items, but like in terms of her design in the events, it's intentionally made so that she's bad there, which I think is stupid, right? And they're doing that with all these characters. And I feel like it doesn't have to be like every single character that releases, but like it has been every single character that has released that is not really that helpful in that event. If it was like, you know, maybe the tournament of power androids and then Gohan were good, but then Android 21 wasn't good in Fusions of Monsters. It was like, well, you know, not every unit is going to be good in there, but every single unit is not now, right? So it's just, I don't like it personally. It's my opinion, but you know, we all have opinions about how they design units, right?
Yeah. I think that's fair though, right? Like obviously that, you know, it doesn't mean that they should necessarily be bad, right? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Like they could still be decent. They could still have ways to combat the AoEs. They don't
Right.
have to be. They don't have to double digit tank for them to be decent
Right.
against AoE attacks, right? Um, but they're instead of just making them bad, instead of making them decent as the
Right.
brand new character, and it's like, like because you can so clearly tell because that's the only event where it's like they will struggle in like that. It's like just that event, and specifically that event that they're targeting to make it harder, which is like why people are thinking, oh, this event is the issue, but it's really how they're designing the characters that's making the event as big of an issue as it should be. Especially since it's been continuous characters.
It is an interesting way to look at it, but I don't even really disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, like you said, I think another big part of that is like, bro, it's a premium unit. Like, not only are you spending
Yeah.
stones, but sometimes you're spending real life lots sometimes of real life money to get the character. Like, they should be good.
I think one
And
of the
then,
things that is interesting as well, because I mean, this could go on for ages, right? And I know we don't want to drag on for too long,
Yeah.
but like, you can kind of circle it all back around to a sort of weird misunderstanding, or every person is different, so it's kind of difficult to understand as a generality. But it's like, why are people playing the game, and like, what do people play the game for? Because as we've said, right, like if they're bringing out a new release and that new release is, say, they're not good against the hardest boss, or they absolutely fodderize the hardest boss. If you're somebody who spends money on the game, let's say, on a fairly regular basis, the chances are you've probably beaten all the events in the game anyway.
Right.
So do you care if the unit that you're spending money on, like let's say, for example, again, to use the LR Super Saiyan Trio, people will be summoning for them because they think they're cool, they think they're hype, they like their animations. So are they going to care if they're not good against AoEs? Like, probably
Well, that
not.
depends on the
Whereas
person.
some
The thing about
people,
that
whereas some
is-
people will. So it's weird because it's like if you're a player who you don't spend a lot of money or you're free to play, you obviously want the units that you do save up your stones and then summon for to be good against the hardest events, because chances are you haven't beaten all of those hardest events in the game.
Right.
So I think it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint exactly what viewpoint Dokkan is actually coming from when they make these units, because it's like when they consider how the quality of, or like how the difficulty level that these new units can be or are good against, like what are they taking into account when they decide like how strong to make these units? But it's something that I guess we've kind of always wondered about and has never really been very clear. So it would be very interesting to know what their, like, as a dev team, like what their sort of stated goal or like mission statement is for when they make these units. Like, what, are they told sometimes that like, oh, this release, because of it being at a specific time of the year, or because they know in advance it's going to come out before some other big event, it's like, you can only make this unit XYZ level of power. Like, it'd be really interesting to know how they do determine all of that kind of stuff, because it's definitely interesting. But
Yeah.
I guess just the
I
one
do
thing I
agree.
want to say for that, probably will be the last thing, because again, like you said, we're running on like this a little longer, but we could say in a vacuum, oh, I'll beat all the content in the game, so I could summon whoever I want. That's fine. But you also have to consider that there's going to be future events that are going to be harder. So if you still want to strategize and like use, like, okay, where should I best summon for? That's why it's good to evaluate these units. So, it's like, okay, these are the best characters you could summon for, this is how good this character is, even just for fun. But like a lot of the times, at least the reason why I like, evaluating units, looking at them is like, okay, I can help people recommend like, okay, should you summon for this character or not? How good this character is, where you could apply them if you want them. But we want to keep in mind that, I mean, AoEs have been a thing, like we've said, for years at this point. So it's like, it's not going to be surprising when like 9th anniversary introduces a 600k, even 700k AoE boss doing normals, like in turn 5, they do those AoE attacks for like 700k, let's say, or something crazy like that, right? Would it really be that surprising, considering that they've been doing the same thing for the past 3 years? And then it's like you get a character that's like, oh, I like this character is not necessarily that great in the hardest events, but I beat all the hardest events, so I'm gonna put all my stones that I've been saving towards them. And then that power creep hits, and that character is then not useful in those stages. Is another thing you could think of, right? And it's like, well, I wish I didn't do that, right? But I mean, you can look at it either way. At the end of the day, this is a game for fun, and you could also just use items. So, like, who cares, right?
Yeah. In the wise words of Toon Rami, just use items, bozo, or whatever he said.
Use items,
What was
dummy.
the exact quote? Yeah, use items,
Just use
dummy.
items, dummy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What a fantastic quote. Words to live by, quite frankly. Unfortunately, not with the new mission, but definitely words to live by. But yeah, that is it for our trash take section. See, I knew that this was for on a good discussion. I'm cooking, baby. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for the main section of our episode today. Obviously, we do, though, still have our super chats and donations to go over, answering all of your fantastic questions and shout outs and whatnot. So, Ningen, I'm gonna toss it over to you.
Yo.
And what do we got?
All right, so we just got a couple here today. So shout out to, let's bring it up here. They've actually all stayed on Streamlabs this time. So shout out to Philip Rodriguez for the $2 super chat. It came in nearer the beginning when we were talking about the Super Saiyan trio. The word of the day is lummox. So yeah, we love that from the super attack. So you love to see it.
Dude, when that appeared on the screen, it's funny that you say that, or you were mentioning it earlier. I literally went, what word is that? Like, I literally said that out loud when I read the global super attack. So, hey, you learned something. Don't let your parents tell you that Dokkan never taught you anything, kids, because, learning new words. But anyway.
So, yeah, that is a good one. And then we have one, we also have Philip Rodriguez. Shout out to him again for gifting some channel memberships. So 5 channel memberships. Shout out to Blazer Dragon, Burst, 9 the Third, King Nar, and Extreme Sergio. So shout out to you guys. And then we have Daniel Rodriguez with the $5 super chat. He says Global gets New Year's celebration while JP has the anniversary. That'd be kind of interesting, actually.
That would be interesting.
Because I guess, trying to think, because obviously we'd still have the issue where anniversary gets put back till like July, but I guess we get what? So they still drop like Trunks and potentially Omega in like January, and then while JP's having the anniversary, Global gets the New Year Dual Dokkan Fest. It still leaves us in that position where we're what, like another two Dokkan Fests and an LR behind. So I don't know, that could definitely be interesting, but it would be very weird for the schedule overall. I mean, where they're going to fit in the New Year Dual Dokkan Fest if they don't do it at the same time will be interesting to see, because will they just go back to what they did in the previous years and have it drop in that same time slot, or will they do something else, right? Obviously, we just don't know. Like, we can't assume that it will be the same as it was in the years before, because they seem to be changing things left and right at the moment, so who knows?
Yeah, because you can't say for sure.
Exactly. It's one of those, it's the good old meme. Dokkan always does things the same way until they don't. And
that's true.
You never know, right? True. Like, we all just assumed it would be same time again, and it seems like it won't be. So yeah, who knows? It could be the same time it was in the previous years when it wasn't same time, but it could not be. So I guess we will just have to wait and see. So those are the donos and shout outs for today's episode. Thank you to you guys for helping to support the podcast. And yeah, that's all the shout outs.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for supporting this episode of the Slot One Super Podcast. We talked about lots of different stuff on today's episode. Obviously, it is going to be a very exciting time coming up here for Dokkan. Obviously, we've been talking about New Year's for a fat minute, and we're literally going to be getting that info like basically tomorrow.
Yep. We'll cover the next week.
Yeah, so we will be talking about that next week, which will be very, very exciting. Obviously, we also have anniversary coming up as well. I'm sure that one will probably be our next maybe contender for our next biggest episode thus far, considering Heroes was our biggest one up until this point. But to be fair, Heroes had like 20 units or something like that. So I don't know if we'll have that many for the anniversary. We'll have to see.
Yes, I'll be going hard for the anniversary.
Yeah.
You better too. You're a GP player, Dokkan Assets. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I always go in for the anniversary. 100%.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
especially if it, if it ends up being the boy Beast.
And then Ningen could have fun with the Tournament of Power Androids.
Woo!
I thought you were gonna say Tech Trunks. I was gonna be
Nah,
like,
Tech Trunks is going to be during New Year's.
Woo!
Tech
Yeah.
Trunks is literally one of those units that like I will be summoning for him because I am a content creator, and that is the only reason. Like I don't want to summon for him, but
there comes a time in every man's life where he must decide to summon or skip. This may be your first skip.
yeah, probably not, unfortunately, but we'll see.
It might be time. It's time. You just get the one and done, and then you're out. That's
what we have to hope for, right? So
right, exactly. All right, well, thank you everybody for watching this episode. We always appreciate your patronage. Definitely come back next week when we discuss all this fun stuff that we got coming up. Of course, as per usual, we do also have the episode going up on Spotify tomorrow. So if you know anybody who listens to anything really on Spotify, or if you listen to Spotify yourself, obviously go check us out over there. We always upload the episodes a day afterward. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Without further ado, this has been your boy Dokkan Assets, of course, Minatos Flash and Masningen joining me once again, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. See you in the next one.
bye.
Bye.